you take. And if you try to fix more than you break, if you're the kind who takes the time to help a stranger in the rain, there's a place for people like you.
Very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen.
Stand up for those
It's 2 minutes after 6 p.m. on a Monday evening, the 1st of November.
and lend a voice to those who cannot speak.
When you hear that kind of music, you know what's happening, right, on a Monday evening?
Shine a little light, give sight to the ones who've lost their ways.
So every Monday evening at that time, I ask you to sit back, relax,
People like you.
get your coffee, get your tea.
I've heard that the streets are made of gold.
This afternoon, my recommendation is a little rough cake, right? A coconut rough cake.
There's a hand to hold.
And you might want to have that with a little bit of cocoa tea with some flour and boaden.
There's a place up there.
And if you don't have that, just find it.
If you want,
Because we're about to have a very great evening tonight, and you need some, to energize yourself a little bit.
and if you're trying to be the change you want to see,
We're really going to have a wonderful evening tonight.
if you lay down your life for,
On this edition of Kudos for Our Heroes.
there's a place for people like you. I've heard that the streets are made of gold.
Of course, we'll have quite a few people whose voices we'll hear, and we'll give you an opportunity to call into the program tonight.
There's a hand to hold
So call a friend, call your neighbor.
when your days down here are through.
Tell them we're having another very interesting program on this November 1st. Right in the middle of the independent season, of course. I will meet some very special people in the studio. Many of them are joining me via the technology that we have.
I've heard up there the streets are made of gold. And when you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your days down here are through, there's a place up there for people like you. I know you're out there, so keep doing what you do. 'Cause there's a place up there for people like you.
So let me again thank you for joining us this evening. And as I do so, I ask the chairperson for this committee, the one and only, Sheridan Gregoire. And he will talk to us a little bit tonight as we introduce this program. Mr. G, a very good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Pastor Rodney. And thank you so much for the accolade there. You said the one and only. I'd just like to be known as the guy who has a PHP, and that stands for being poor, humble, and very polite. And that's what I try to do. And let me just say a very, very warm good evening to Mrs. Desiree John and to you in the studio with Pastor Rodney. It's Simeon Joseph and Rennick. So good evening, everybody. And really, Mrs. Desiree John, we're very delighted to have her here with us tonight. The esteemed wife of our late first Prime Minister of Dominica, Patrick Roland John, who simply preferred to be called PJ. And I know most people always fondly refer to him as PJ. And good evening to his distinguished children. I mean, Rennick is already in the studio with us. So Patrick Jr., Patricia, Heptalia, Paula, Nairi, Aisha. Very, very special, warm good evening to all of you. I'm also pleased indeed, and I feel profoundly honored and privileged to say a very special good evening to the distinguished members of our Q95 Kudos to our Heroes Committee. Ms. Janice Williams Russell in Toronto, Ms. Corinne Francis in San Francisco, Dr. Emmanuel Finn in Washington, D.C., former UN Ambassador Crispin Gregoire in New York, Leroy Wadix Charles is in Dominica. Some of our members are just logging in with us now, so we'll soon see everyone clearly on the screen with us in our video. We are live on Facebook. You're at YSQFM and at Q95 FM Radio and on several other platforms. So I want to say very special good evening to you all and to all global Q family listeners. It is an international, or maybe we can just call it a national event tonight, but in fact, it is somewhat international. In fact, I've already received and seen messages from listeners and fans, friends and colleagues in Dominica. Let me just name a few. I see Guyana, Trinidad, Grenada, Barbados, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, and a couple of people in St. Lucia, Antigua, St. Kitts, Guadeloupe, Martinique, St. Martin, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Jamaica, Switzerland, Sudan, Europe, Canada, the United States, and some other destinations, all tuned into Q95 and listening to a live stream or watching on Facebook. We anticipate a big evening at Q95 as we posthumously honor PJ, the little man with a big heart and a big historical stature on the big station. So fellow Dominicans and our cherished and highly favored extended Q family listeners at home and abroad, as chairman of the Q95 Kudos to our Heroes Committee, and on behalf of our entire committee, I'm absolutely delighted and feel deeply honored indeed to be able to say that tonight we present the late first Prime Minister of Dominica, Patrick Roland John, posthumously to Dominica, to the region, and to the world as our 8th Kudos Dominican hero, a true national hero indeed. So here's a little bit of what we know about him. PJ's dad, Mawson John, was born in Grand Fond and resided in Kennedy Avenue in Roseau. His mom was born in Portsmouth and also resided at Kennedy Avenue in Roseau. PJ attended the St. Mary's Academy in Roseau from 1950 to 1955. He taught at the St. Mary's Academy from 1955 to 1959. So I'm sure that if any of my stats are incorrect, I'm sure that Simeon Joseph, Mrs. Edward John will later correct me. So Mr. Patrick John served as Dominica's first Prime Minister from November 3rd, 1978 to June 21st, 1979. After leading Dominica to political independence from Great Britain. So prior to independence, Mr. John served as Premier of Dominica from 1974 to 1978. He had previously held several key government positions, including Deputy Premier. Mr. John served as Member of Parliament for the Rosenhof constituency from November 1, 1970 to April 27, 1980. And as parliamentary representative for the St. Joseph constituency from July 1, 1985 to February 20th, 1986. So the late Patrick Roland John was born January 8, 1937 and passed away on July 6, 1921 at the age of 84. He survived, as we can see, by his esteemed dear wife, Desiree, and children Rennick and Patrick Jr., Nairi, Aisha, Trisha and Sem, Hephilia Daly, and Paula Jean-Jacques. We can recall that 3 days of national mourning was declared from Monday, September 27, 2021 to Wednesday, September 29, 2021. Flags were flown at half-staff on all public buildings during that period. And members of the public sent flowers and wreaths at the ground floor of the government headquarters from Tuesday, September 28, 2021. We paid their respects and said their silent goodbyes while his body was lying in state for viewing from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for specifically invited groups and the general public at the forecourt of the Windsor Park Sports Stadium. His body also lay in state on Wednesday, September 29, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 12 noon at the State House Conference Center for viewing by parliamentary and government officials. His funeral service was held at the St. Gerard's Cathedral Chapel in Roseau from 2 p.m., followed by burial at the Anglican Church grounds, and attendance was limited to family members and invitees only due to COVID-19 protocols. The funeral service was streamed live by Government Information Service, all radio stations on island. So on behalf of the management and staff of Q95 and the entire local, regional, and global Q family, I wish to express our deepest sympathy to the family and friends of the late first Prime Minister of Dominica, Mr. Patrick Roland John. Just a little bit about his career. Mr. John's career spanned politics, sports, teaching, calypso, songwriting and composing, costume designing and building, and much more. So it is clear that in addition to the late first Dominica Prime Minister Patrick Roland John's valuable transformational lifelong work and accomplishments, he always found a way to bring out the best in others, to work hard and smart, to be true to their profession, to reach out to excellence and be dedicated to being the very best that they can be in whatever they did. The kudos indeed to our first Dominica Prime Minister Patrick Roland John and his family. He's a true Dominican hero for instilling a positive mental attitude that elevated the content of the dialogue on social, cultural, political, and economic matters of consequence, among many other things, and he did so for some 45 years or thereabouts. We invite you, our cherished Q95 listeners at home, in the Caribbean region and globally, to join us tonight in remembering and posthumously recognizing, celebrating, awarding, and extending kudos to our 8th Dominican hero, the first Prime Minister of Dominica, Patrick Roland John. And rest assured that Mr. Patrick Roland John, or PJ, as I'm sure he would like to be fondly remembered, remains highly respected and cherished by all of us in Dominica, our nature island gem of the Caribbean, for his exemplary performance in transcending self-interest, for going well over and beyond the call of duty, and above and beyond normal demands and expectations, for commanding respect in society, for his many achievements and his tenacity in the face of the challenges that he undoubtedly encountered and endured in his lifetime, for his impactful political leadership, for his community involvement, collaborations, and partnerships, for his dedicated commitment to the arts, to social and cultural development, and for his national humanitarian outreach. So for these and for many other reasons, just too numerous to mention here tonight, we, the members of the Q95 Kudos to our Heroes Committee, to remember, recognize, appreciate, and award first Dominica Prime Minister Patrick Roland John posthumously as a champion. And we bestow upon Mr. John the very well-deserved and earned esteemed title of a true Dominican hero. So kudos indeed to our 8th Dominican hero, first Prime Minister of Dominica, Patrick Roland John, and to his wife Desiree, and to all of his children who stood steadfastly beside him through thick and thin. And it will always be the distinguished honor and delight of all of us Dominicans at home and abroad, and in the Q family, to say to everyone, everywhere, we knew, we loved first Prime Minister Patrick Roland John and his surviving great resilient wife Desiree and his wonderful children. And may God bless all of the other true Dominican heroes whose works positively impact the lives of Dominicans everywhere, every day. So on behalf of our kudos to our Heroes Committee, and on behalf of every Dominican at home and abroad, I say thank you, late Prime Minister of Dominica, Patrick Roland John. Thank you for your very rich and inspiring legacy. Rest well, my friend. And now I yield back to you, Pastor Rodney.
Mr. G, thank you very much for, as usual, a very comprehensive introduction. Permit me to add, though, that the committee always intended to honor Mr. John around this time of the year, long before his death. So while we are recognizing him tonight, I want our audience to know that he was already on our list to honor during the independence season 2021. Verifiable, Mr. G?
Well, that is quite correct indeed. I mean, we did so. It's, I would say, maybe 9 months ago or thereabouts, if I recall correctly. I mean, and we had the discussions. We had many requests from many different people to absolutely recognize the late Prime Minister Patrick Roland John. And our committee unanimously agreed that we should do so. And we were kind of, a little worried about the time factor, but then we thought the most appropriate time would be the independence. He's the father of the independence. And so we thought this was the best time to have it. Unfortunately, he passed before we could do it, and it's so regrettable. We wish that he had been here with us to receive his flowers while he was alive. But nonetheless, his great wife Desiree is with us. All his children are there with her. And so the great friend of that family, Mr. Simeon Joseph, is here with us tonight. We're so happy to have all of you with us tonight. I see that Dr. Finn has joined us now, and we hope that former Ambassador Gregoire will join us shortly. So Pastor Rodney, I think we are really just delighted to be here, and I'm pretty sure that the many people who are waiting to call later on will be happy to add their voice to all the accolades that we hope to pour on Mr. Patrick John here tonight.
Thanks, Mr. G. I just wanted to make sure that we put that out there because we want people to know that we didn't just do that because PG died. It wasn't because PG died.
That's right.
A few members of the committee here with us tonight, and I'm going to ask each of them to share their comments before we go into some of the recorded audios that we have, and we have both Renick and Simeon here this evening. Simeon seemed to have presented a reservoir of information that some of us, missed or knew nothing about then. So we will tap into Simeon tonight, and I'm glad he's sitting to my right this evening. So we have a lot to do, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said to you, sit tight. We're going to get there. I have a lady who's very well dressed in this independence outfit, extremely well dressed, and herself made some impact on the Creole landscape, on the cultural landscape in Dominica. Janice, your comments, please.
Well, Mr. G said it correctly, that we wished that the late Honorable Patrick Roland John was here with us. It was always our intention to make sure that he received those flowers while he was here. But, there are blessings in everything because his dear wife is still here. And with her receiving those flowers and those kudos, he's still sitting beside her. And I want to say, congratulations, Mrs. John, on behalf of your husband. He's sitting right there beside you, also accepting this great award. He made a tremendous impact on our society and in Dominica. And I say, congratulations on behalf of your husband. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And then I'll ask a man from the East. I understood that PJ's mom was from Grand Fond, and Dr. Finn, his father, was from Grand Fond. Dr. Finn is from La Plaine, You know, there may be some link there and some wisdom coming from the East. Dr. Finn, good night.
Good night, Pastor. You mean from over, right? Okay, so I want to say good evening to the committee and certainly to Mrs. John. Let me just deviate for 1 second, Pastor, if you don't mind. I think Janice is really eloquently dressed, and I think we should have another award tonight for her. But we'll have to take it up in committee next time. But anyway, I don't know. I'll start by asking the question: where were you, if you remember, when the Salisbury Declaration was taking place? I don't know. You want to think about that? If I recall, it was an August Sunday afternoon, and I was with my battery-powered transistor radio under a mango tree in La Plaine. And I could remember Mr. John making his case for independence. And I remember him saying, and don't quote me verbatim here, but that we should get independence from Great Britain because a West Indian kid born in Great Britain is considered a West Indian born in Britain and not a British citizen. And I thought that was poignant, and I've carried this with me all for these years, right? You want to think about where were you when the Salisbury Declaration was taking place? I also want to say that during his tenure as Prime Minister, we came of age. I was a teenager in high school. And obviously, it was also a tumultuous time in Dominica politically, certainly towards the end of his tenure. And I think if one thing we can take away from Mr. John's tenure is that we as Dominicans are a very small place where everybody knows everybody. Everybody is related to everybody. As a matter of fact, I meet people in Washington. When I differentiate between the Dominican Republic and Dominica, I tell them that in Dominica, there are no strangers, just friends who've never met. So you want to think about that for a minute. I think if he taught us one thing, now he's gone, is that we shouldn't really make enemies because of politics. I think that's poignant. If I can just bring this to today, the gentleman who was the trade union boss, Mr. Savary, vehemently opposed Mr. John. I think it's poignant that the past is prologue, and I think it's important that we point it out tonight. And maybe personally, I don't know. It was the Freedom Party versus Labour. Today, Mr. Savary is sitting very pretty at the presidential palace because of a Labour government. So again, if Mr. John taught us anything with his departure from this world, is that, yeah, we have differences, but let's not cannibalize each other, because at the end of the day, it's just politics. And I think we need to take that off with us as we go along. And one other thing I want to say, during his tenure, of course, we had the dread war, if you may, the dread conflict, and a lot of our young people got killed in the bush. And I think it would be poignant now with his departure that an investigation be launched as to how many of our young people got killed by law enforcement in the bush and how many were left in the bush, so that we can move on. I think I would implore anybody who was a police commander or defense force commander at that time to come forward. Of course, you'll be granted immunity, because I think that would be a legacy of Mr. John if we could just come clean. You saw South Africa did it with the Truth Commission. And I think that will also teach us a lesson as to what's happening today, where law enforcement should just be law enforcement and not political enforcement. So I think Mr. John has taught us a great lesson. And again, as a teenager, we were idealistic as to where our country would go in the next 40 years. And I think he's left his mark on society. And for that, we're thankful. And so may his soul rest in peace. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, Dr. Finn. And you asked a question that I'm not sure I can answer. What I can answer is where I was on November 3rd, 1978. I can answer that very, very well. And I remember leaving the Windsor Park, it was at the time, on a Bedford truck with my mother and the people from Kulibistri in a loaded Bedford truck going back to Kulibistri with all kinds of emotions in that truck. some happy and some crying. So I remember that very, very, very well because I was there when the flag of Dominica was hoisted and the Union Jack was brought down. That for me is a recorded history I will never forget. We have with us Corinne. Corinne, you're there, right? Good night to you again.
Good night to you. Yes, I'm there.
It's your turn to share a few thoughts with us.
Thank you, Pastor Rodney, and to all the listening public of Q95, a wonderful good evening to you. It is an honor to be a part of this program to recognize this little man with the big heart. And the little man with the big heart is someone that I knew. We discussed many times in our meetings the list of persons to be honored, and we had some heated discussions about the timing of honoring the Right Honorable Patrick Rowland John. As a little girl, I knew Mr. John, and I can't say very well now, but I knew him very well in my little girl's life. My godmother, my unofficial godmother, Evelyn James, lived in the second house that was given to the people of Bath Estate. The Bath Estate housing scheme is a legacy that Patrick Rowland John has left for Dominica. And why I remember that is that Patrick's sister, Ma Bernard, got the first house as you entered Bath Estate, and Evelyn James was the second house as the duplex to Ma Bernard, who is Patrick's sister. And so Mr. John would come and visit his sister, and I was there with Evelyn because I spent many nights in Bath Estate. She came and took me from my mom, literally was like my second mom in Dominica while I was growing up. So that is my experience of the Prime Minister. And I was one of those who experienced his kindness because he always brought something for the children who were playing around in the yard when he came to visit his sister, Ma Bernard. And I experienced that kindness, so much so that when my godmother, Evelyn James, said we were going to campaign, I was right there with her throwing shoes on electric wires in Dominica for the Labour Party. So I hope that is not a crime, and I hope I will not be convicted for it. But I threw lots of shoes on dumb black wires around Dominica campaigning in the Labour Party. So that is my experience of the little man, and truly feeling the warmth of someone who cared for everyone, no matter who you were and no matter what you did. I know that we have a lot of people who want to call in, and as well people who want to, whose voice notes we have to play. And I found one of my closing, I would say, thesis statements for two of my papers I wrote when I was in college. And it encapsulates Mr. John for me and for leadership. And I want to share that with our listening public in memory of Mr. John, because his life demonstrated exactly the poem from, it's a letter to the rulers of the people from St. Francis of Assisi. His life demonstrated that for us, and I hope these words can influence our future and current leaders in Dominica. Keep a clear eye towards life's end. Do not forget your purpose and destiny as God's creature. When you are in God's sight, what you are in God's sight is what you are and nothing more. Do not let worldly cares, anxieties, or the pressures of office blot out the divine life within you or the voice of God's Spirit, guiding you in the great task of leading humanity to wholeness. If you open yourself to God and God's plan printed deeply in your heart, God will open himself to you. Remember that when you leave this earth, you can take with you nothing that you have received, fading symbols of honor, trappings of power, but only what you have given, a heart full, enriched by honest service, love, sacrifice, and courage. Embrace the God of us all and his word wherever it surfaces. Imitate his preference for the poor and powerless. Enter into his plan of liberating all peoples from everything that oppresses them and obstructs their development as human beings. Do not grow tired of working for peace among all people. Help remove unjust social structures and patterns of exploitation. Uphold the rights and dignity of the human person. Foster the creation of a society where human life is cherished and where all peoples of the planet can enjoy its gifts, which God created for all in a spirit of love, justice, and equality. These words remind me of the Right Honorable Patrick Roland John. And it is a message from his life and a message unto his death. May he rest in peace.
Thanks, Corinne. How profound and appropriate, I think, very, very, very appropriate for tonight as well. There is one more member of the committee here, and I don't see his face, but I noticed that he's on here. Crispin, are you there? Good evening to you. Crispin Gregoire, former ambassador.
Yes, I am there. I'm having some challenge with my video. That's why you can't see me. But I have to say that I am indeed greatly honored to be part of this recognition of the late Prime Minister Patrick Roland John. I want to say good evening to all the listeners to Q95 tonight. And I want to say good evening to Mrs. Desiree John and the children of the late Prime Minister who are present in studio, as well as Simeon and others who may be there. What can I say about Patrick Roland John? A giant, a man who stood firm, a man who brought the end to colonial rule in Dominica. Those are major. This is a major achievement. He reminds me of people like Jomo Kenyatta from Kenya, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, who likewise had the honor to bring an end to colonial rule in their countries. So for that alone, he will go down forever in our history, and his name is definitely going to be etched in the annals of Dominican history forever, being the first prime minister. I became familiar with his name when I went to high school, and that was in like 1967. And he was already, I believe then, he may have already been the mayor of Roseau. And I was familiar with that name from the time I started high school. Later on, he became a very close associate of my father. And I have to say to Mrs. John that I do have some negatives from my father's archives of him, especially when he took his oath of office in 1970. I have that photograph. I have that negative, which I will print. There might be other negatives as I go through my father's archives. But for me, I can say many things about Patrick Roland John, but I'll say two things which stand out for me. One is that in the transition from Mr. LeBlanc to him, he was immediately faced with the challenge of the Geneva Uprising, which as a young man out of high school, I witnessed, led by Philip Francis, also known as UNICEF. And I'm sure that would have given Mr. John some headaches, because what what should be done with Grand Bay at that time. And most importantly, he did the right thing, and he I guess both him and Mr. LeBlanc decided that the only option that made sense for Grand Bay at that time was to have an agrarian reform. And had the government not intervened in that way on the side of the Grand Bay people, I can tell you that the agrarian reform would not have happened. So for that, I'm ever thankful to Mr. John for making sure that the agrarian reform happened in Grand Bay and that the Grand Bay people finally got land. This was something that the British government tried to do in 1950 and failed because the Grand Bay people were not happy with what was being proposed. The second thing that stands out for me was that I was active in the Labour Party for many years. And at the time, Mr. John was representing St. Joseph in Parliament. And it was just quite a feat for me to be in the same room with him. I mean, here was a man he was the Prime Minister then. By then, he was no longer the Prime Minister, but he was still an elected member of Parliament. And it was quite a learning experience to hear him in the meetings of the Labour Party at that time. And for me, as a young person who learning, and I spent many years learning the intricacies of the Labour Party and got to know people like Flossie Joseph, who were close to him, and many others. It gave me that, what would I say, that background, that knowledge of politics in Dominica and who were the players outside the Labour Party. And so I grew up in those days learning the nuts and bolts of Labour Party, and to the extent that I could be sitting in the same room with somebody who had blazed the trail and made all those different contributions just to learn. And I must say that he did have some imprint on me. And like other people like Mike Douglas, who also worked with him, Oliver Serafin, and all of these people I learned. But Mr. John stands out. I admired the fact that not only was he a politician, but he also had an illustrious career in sports. When it came to culture, when it came to writing calypso, something that I always would have liked to do, and he was a master at that. And also to Mr. John also had a strong reverence for the Kalinago people, and that's something that I want to underscore, that he cared for the Kalinago people. I particularly have an interest in those people, in the Kalinago people, and making sure they have their rightful place in Dominica's development and going forward. So for me, Mr. John will always be the hero that we are making him out tonight. And even if we didn't do this, he's a hero, will always be Dominica's first Prime Minister and a hero going forward. So especially for the young people, I want them to understand and appreciate that our first Prime Minister was somebody who had given his entire life to public service, whether in government or whether it was out of government. And I want to take this time to convey my condolences to Mrs. John and the family. And I just want to say that Patrick John will always be in our minds somebody of great talent, great reverence, and somebody who will be a national hero forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Crispin Gregoire. Again, some very insightful thoughts, some things to ponder on as we go along tonight. We're going to pause a while, and we're going to taking some voice notes, 3 of them, and we'll reflect on those voice notes, and then we will come back to chat a little bit among ourselves. Like I said, we have a full panel here. Simeon is here. I'm sure if I give Simeon the mic tonight, he would be able to speak about Patrick for until 10 o'clock. We're not going to let him do that. We'll just get some snippets from him every now and then, and I'll get Rennick to put some salad on Simeon's talk every now and then. So let's pause a while and let's listen to Angie DePuta, Rupert Branford, and Knowles Bradshaw as we honor Patrick Roland John, the little man with a big heart, PG.
I want to say just a few words about Patrick John. Patrick was a strong person in his work, in his faith. He loved Dominica. Patrick worked in Dominica, taking care of the island because he had a vision for Dominica. And he worked very hard to bring Dominica to be what it is. One of the first things I know was Patrick started the National Bank, and Patrick makes sure that everybody, the poor people, had a home to live in. He loved Dominica. That's all I can say. He loved Dominica very much. Patrick was a boy that come from nothing, and he decided, I'm going to make Dominica be something. And today, all of us Dominicans should be happy for what we are and where we come from, that Patrick John was the Prime Minister of Dominica that made Dominicans have something today. Dominicans had their own home. Up to today, they have their own home. The poor people were not perishing anymore. When you work for $1 or $2, when you do look for what you have in your hand, you had nothing. Patrick John and Francis, I can remember Francis, Eustace Francis, they worked very hard with the land in Dominica so that instead of the land remain bare in many places, they made sure that people had land to build a home, to have a property of their own, that they wouldn't starve. And I'm grateful that I get to know Patrick John when he started and before he started, because he was working for the country, with the people, for the people. So what can I say? He worked hard for Dominica. Many was jealous of what he was doing, because I know what many people said to me concerning the Labour Party this and Labour Party that. I won't even mention it. But Patrick John worked hard in the Labour Party to make the Labour Party be what it is up to today. And we give God thanks and praise for him, because I believe what he did for the country with the vision that he did it with, he is in heaven before the Lord, thanking the Lord that what you revealed to me, I did what you tell me to do.
My name is Rupert J. Branford, retired journalist, sportscaster, and author of St. Lucia. My association with the Honorable Patrick Roland John began in 1961 when you were both selected and on the Winner Islands reserve team following the Popham football tournament in St. Vincent. The reserves were pitted against the select winners team, but our side won the game 2-1. Patrick and I scored the 2 goals, with each of us assisting the other in scoring those goals. The on-field link continued off the field, and we became very close friends, as close as brothers. At the time, Patrick was already mayor of Roseau. Even so early in his political career, I was struck by his strong and deep commitment to his people, especially the poor and disenfranchised. I followed Pat's career avidly and lent what I could in terms of strong moral support during the high and low periods of his political life. During that period, his home was my home, and vice versa. I was virtually adopted by the John family with his wonderful wife Desiree, his brother-in-law Thomas Kentish, and other members. I last saw Pat some 2 years ago when I passed through Dominica with my wife on a cruise to the islands. The great man was confined to his bed. Even then, however, his indomitable spirit shone through, strong and resolute. The news of his death did not shock me, but I know that a void has been left in the political and social landscape of Dominica with his passing. Dominica has lost a true patriot. To Desiree and his children I say, do not mourn Pat. Celebrate his life, the life of a true and worthy son of Dominica.
Good evening, family, friends, and supporters of former Prime Minister Patrick R. John. My name is Knowles Bradshaw, former president of the Labour Youth Organization, also known as LYO. I am very grateful to have known Mr. Patrick R. John, and I am extremely honored for this opportunity to share my thoughts about him. A man I considered a mentor, a father figure, and an effective leader, the Right Honorable Patrick R. John, in my opinion, never failed his country as a leader. Although he had a vast base of supporters, he also had a fierce political opposing force whom would impede progress at any cost, even to the detriment of the country's development. Patrick R. John was a man with impeccable character, admirable political talents, and outstanding political skills. A time worth noting was when the opposing forces of Mr. John violently overthrew his duly elected government and destroyed his supporters' properties. Under those circumstances, supporters contemplated retaliation, but Mr. John was steady and calm in preventing a bloodbath. He assured his people in remaining calm would create a better outcome. Today, remnants of his political opposing forces now occupy high offices and find it fitting to prosecute people for attempts of overthrowing the government with a chop. In 1985, when he contested the elections in St. Joseph, I was president of the LYO, and I am sure I speak not only for myself, but also for the members of the organization, that the Honorable Patrick R. John was instrumental in propelling the St. Joseph LYO to its peak moment. Mr. John's ambitious plan for the development of the St. Joseph constituency was unfortunately halted when his opposing political forces wrongfully imprisoned him in the attempt for overthrowing the government. Yet, he still remained consistent in his effort. Patrick R. John is worthy of admiration for his enormous political endeavors and for his esteemed patriotism. Indeed, in truth, and in fact, he did not live in vain, and his works will always live on. God rest his soul, and in the prosperity of his country, Dominica.
If you give a little more than you take, and if you try to fix more than you break, if you're the kind who takes the time to help a stranger in the rain, there's a place for people like you.
It's 8.5 minutes moving up to 7 o'clock on a Monday evening. This evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is a special edition of Kudos to Our Heroes. I call it the Independence edition, honoring former Prime Minister, former Premier Prime Minister, Patrick Roland John. There are a few things that were said in the few comments before. And, Simon, I'm going to ask you to put some butter on that in a minute. While Renick, I wanted to think of Patrick the father. One of the things that I've always thought about Simeon is what would Dominica have been if Patrick's vision for a free port in the north came to fruition? And I've always asked myself that question because every time I travel to St. Martin, knowing that there is a free port in St. Martin, right, on dot St. Martin, I've always asked myself, that vision from Patrick John preceded a free port in St. Martin. What would Dominica have been? Speak a little bit, Simeon, about the visionary leadership of the man. And you have, we have heard quite a few people mention that already this evening. Give me some thoughts on that, Simeon.
Well, good evening, Pastor Rodney. Desiree, before I speak, let me just say I'm glad to know tonight that we are recognizing a hero. Certainly my hero from childhood throughout my entire adult life for many reasons. I can describe Patrick in 3 words. He was magnanimous, he was indomitable, and he was stoic. And that is enough inspiration for one to have as a hero: magnanimity, indomitability, and stoicism. And I think these are 3 what you call different salts for the essence of life. Having said so, you mentioned a very important word, and the word that you mentioned is vision. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because my memory of PJ was a man of vision. You all have described this program tonight, Patrick John, a man with a big heart. Well, I prefer to append to Patrick's name to the slogan that was ascribed to him in the 1975 election, the man with a master plan. Mm-hmm. That was under his photograph when he went up for the man with a master plan. And the vision for Patrick was indeed a master plan for Dominica. When you looked at the 1975 manifesto of the Dominica Labour Party, that is something when I did eulogy I had to boast about. Because over 90% of the items in that manifesto came to fruition. Now look at the other things that did not come to fruition. The international airport, geothermal energy, that's in that manifesto. Free secondary education, that's in that manifesto. Skills training for Dominicans, that's in that manifesto. All of these things, between his quote-unquote downfall, I would say removal from office, and today, are major projects on the developmental landscape of Dominica. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Patrick indeed had a vision, and his vision wasn't myopic. His vision was broad. His vision was multifaceted. Patrick had a vision for agriculture. That is
Simeon, I don't want to cut you, but I want to make to expand that. Uh-huh. We're talking about a man in 1975.
A man in 1975
who is visioning a Freeport, who is visioning geothermal project.
I'm coming to the Freeport.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, I want us to put that in its context.
And I'm going to contextualize.
I mean, this is what we're talking 46 years ago.
Yes, and I'm going to contextualize and put it into perspective.
Right.
Because at the core of Patrick's developmental vision was the upliftment of the poor man, the rural man, and the common man. The common man in the sense that the ordinary person on the street would make something for themselves. The rural folk because remember, Patrick inherited a Dominica where people who came from out of town were still being called country bookie. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And let us not forget that he inherited the position of premiership after the people from Roseau literally pressured the first premier from Dominica, from the country, to return to the country. Mm-hmm. And so the poor man, because of where he came from, Patrick never forgot that he came from poor Anawim roots. And so his vision was for that. And when you look at it, when you come to the Freeport, and that is something that I may reveal tonight about that Freeport, in the sense that Patrick at that time wanted to uplift agriculture and at the same time bring the rural folk of Dominica into the developmental sphere to take it away from Roseau. And so he saw that the area of Dominica with the most potential, land, labor, human resource, environmental beauty and everything was the north. That's where the best beaches were located and everything. And so let us not forget that even since in Mr. Leblanc days, there were plans to develop the north. Let's not forget the major Portsmouth development thing that Mr. Leblanc had sort of initiated. So he brought in that, and the invitation came to the Freeport. Now, the thing that triggers my dissatisfaction with Dominicans is that we find that many Dominicans today boast of St. Martin being a Freeport. But these were the same Dominicans who totally condemned Patrick John for wanting to. And in those days, a Freeport was branded as the worst thing for Dominica. Let us not forget that. All the political meetings in Lago, all the writings on the New Chronicle, all the political pundits who basically lambasting the fact that Dominica was going to be a Freeport.
Yes.
Which coincidentally, when you look at that very same area, we have what is called the most advanced tourism development project, the company's capital today in that very same area. You cannot talk about the Freeport without talking about Don Pearson.
Right.
Where does Don Pearson come from? If today you even go and you do the research, because I mean, when I had the opportunity to speak to PJ about that, why did he do that, and he explained to me about why he was going for the Freeport, he said, let's face it, and people blame Leo Austin and all that kind of thing. Don Pearson had a track record of development. Let's not forget that he was in Haiti in the late 70s before the Dominica scenario. And he had a major tourism expansion and radio expansion project in Haiti,
Right.
which today still stands as a legacy of Don Pearson's involvement for the development of the tourism development area in Haiti. That is out there in the world of knowledge. If you go and Google it, if you do your research and you do research on Don Pearson, you will find that man was a major investor with the capital, so he was going to bring him to Dominica. But I think Dominica today would have been a very flourishing landmark for the rest of the OECS and the Windward Islands. And one of the things the young people in Dominica have to know today is the fact that the fact that had Patrick John the opportunity to develop Dominica according to the vision that he had, to use your own word, many of them today would have inherited a much more prosperous Dominica.
Oh, yeah. No doubt
Because
in my
all
mind.
his plans for Dominica was, I said, were very futuristic. Look at the stadium, the international airport, the Canefield Airport, the National Bank, the Social Security. And I have not even mentioned, it was under Patrick John that we established the Mont Papito National Park. I mean, and the list goes on, you know. There are many things in Harris Spence. There are many things, when I did the eulogy, but I mean, with the restriction of time, we did not want to enumerate too many things. But when you can think of 1976, a man decides to name Dominica a national park, and legislating it in Parliament to preserve our forests and our wildlife. Had he not done that? So juxtapose that with people who claim Patrick wanted to sell Dominica with establishing a national park. Preservation versus quote-unquote exploitation. So you see the anomaly here. And I think that when you really look at, to use your word, vision for Dominica, again, it's something that I will say until my dying day, that Dominica was robbed of the opportunity to have Patrick John usher us into at least the first 10, 15 years of our independence.
I am in total agreement with that. It's like I said, it's something I have been thinking about, I've been mulling over, I've been wondering over. And I juxtapose that, Simeon, and the rest of you here, against, you know, some of the things that we hear now, people say, so and so have a vision. And it's very often I ask the question, where is it? You know, where is it? What it is? Can you crystallize it? What is that vision? And you don't know what that is, something about it, something in the air. So we'll come back to that, and I'm hoping that we will learn some lessons as far as that's concerned. Rennick, I want you to share some thoughts with us, and I do that every time I'm on this program because, you know, very often we lift people up for what they've done, and we forget some of the very important things that they have done in terms of building society, and they start with building family. Patrick, your father. Share with us a couple of thoughts about that.
Well, first of all, let me say good evening to the listening public. I must say that my father, I always say my father is a special guy. He is a man that I really admired at the time, a man that he was like a mentor to me, and not only to me, but to the children, his family, and he was a caring guy. And I can recall that when I was on the national youth team, my father would come to the Windsor Park and watch me play, and give me, he had given me an incentive when I make the team. He had challenged me, give me an incentive, and he bought a new boots from me, a brand new boots from his Marie. That's Marie that used to manage Harris Paint. They were bosom bodies. And he was a motivator. He cared for his family, he cared for his children. He would support us wherever when we are in need, he would be there for us. And it was really disturbing, and when we see our father went through certain struggles, how he was treated. It was a nightmare for us as a family. And I couldn't believe that. There was a time I was aspiring to be a politician like him. And but when I saw what my father went through, all the sacrifices that he made, and people did not acknowledge him, and people did not really see what he was trying to do. Though the 4 years that he spent as prime minister, we could see the mark, as you Simeon said. We saw it was ETB, and it was just done by public works. That's where it was. ETB is now Dexia. We see the Kenfield Airport, the stadium that was done by the French. My father and myself used to go there and play football in the afternoon when they were building. You know, we used to go and play football there with the Kenfield guys. There are a number of other initiatives that he did in a short space of time. And I always say that if my father had given a chance, Dominica would be plenty further than where it is today. But because of who he is, where he came from, there was a kind of jealousy. And as a result, they tried to destroy him. But one of the things that I admire him, he was a person that would not really welcome to grudge his enemy, retaliate. He was not that kind of person. Even when we would try to be aggressive and try to defend and try to decide we're going to do certain things, we just leave that alone. That's the kind of person, leave that alone. And he would never make these problems. You never see that. You know, he used to try to encourage us. And the thing is that it used to hurt us to see that what he tried, he sacrificed. Because my father told me that what really motivated him to go into politics is because how his parents grew up.
Yeah.
His father was working on the port. He used to say his father was barefoot, no shoes. His mother, my grandmother, Mamoson, she used to be a huckster from Dominica to Barbados. And also when she's in Dominica, she was vending, selling her ice cream and peanuts and those things. And that is what they did so that they could send him to school. And he was the only one that got the opportunity to go to a secondary school. And he vowed that based on what he saw his parents, the way we could go ahead to send him to school, he decided, well, he have to, when he want to go into politics, to elevate
Quality of life of other people.
Other people. And he started, when he was at Will Church, that is where he started with the WOW. He was one of the established WOW for the same, his father was a port worker. So he organized union to elevate these workers on the port. And that was his kind of, the vision that he had for Dominica. You know, I can remember he told me once, when we were growing up, that there was a time that a poor person couldn't work in a bank. A poor person could not go to university. So when they came in, they break that off to give the poor person an opportunity to go to a secondary school and to go to university or to work in a bank. They came up with the locust houses to benefit because there was a set of people in town, the Casimirs, J.B. Charles had the houses, and the poor people were living in those houses and they could not own a house on their own. So they came with that locust houses because he always said there were three classes, the high, middle income, and the low cost. So they were concerned for the lower people so they can own their own home, have their title, independent. So they built a number of houses. Sometimes we talk about Bath Estate alone, but Canefield, Point Michel, you have Trafalgar, and some other places. I think some at Foncourt at the back. He built those houses for poor people, and now the people have their title, they're independent or whatever it is. But as a father, he was a mentor, he was an advisor. Anytime we have any, I used to be working in the service, and if I get any little problems, I would go to him, and he would advise me. Sometimes he write letters on our behalf. I think he's a lawyer. And you know, that was the kind of thing my father was a great Dominican, honestly. And I don't know, but I cannot have a better father than Patrick John.
Good. Thank you very much for that comment. Mr. G, I want you to take a note. I don't want to comment on that yet, but I want you to take a note because there are some things that I believe we need to expand for the benefit of everybody else. And I'm hoping Simeon is taking that note as well in terms of teaching or maybe transferring visionary leadership, not people who are into leadership for what they can get for themselves, but people whom we can really look at to say, oh, that's the plan. You may not understand all the details of the plan, but you need to be able to see the vision from people like that. I want you to take a note about that. Desiree, good evening again to you. And I wanted to share a few moments on the husband, the man who fathered your children. We're talking about him in all respects. We have heard from Renick, from him as a father. I want you to speak about the man that you got married to, Nomla.
Well, Pastor Rodney and the team, well, I could not have had a better husband than that. And if I had to do it again, I would have done it with the same man. We had 2 children, and we were in a very close relationship. Are you all hearing me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay, we were in a very, very close relationship. As to even this morning, I kept, missing him because if I would hear a little Beth here, a little Beth there, we would discuss it, because we were really close. We were really close. I would run home and say, I heard this, I heard that, and, I'm going into 49 years of marriage. It's very, very rough. It's trying times for me, and I'm just trying to cope with the situation. But he was a good man. As a matter of fact, Patrick would draw his salary, his monthly salary, being a minister of government, being premier, being prime minister, and he would just come and bring the check to me. And then we would sit and we'd say, well, we have this bill to pay, that bill to pay. And he would always tell me, Desiree, you are working, save your salary, because you don't know when bad days are coming. Because I have always worked. I worked when Patrick was a minister of government. He was premier, he was prime minister. I have never sat at my home with my legs up. I always worked. I was a hard-working woman, wife and mother. But if I had to do it again, folks, I would do it with the same man over and over again.
The same.
What people would have said, who is in the kitchen knows what's happening.
You would have married the same short man, Desiree.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He did not look short, There are many people out there who wanted him, but I being the strong woman, that wasn't going. to happen.
You knew how tall he was. Thank you very much for telling me. We'll talk about that in a subsequent newscast, Desiree.
Cabinet.
All right, I see we have another illustrious man who is joining us tonight, and I'm going to get to him in just a while. My old school friend, grammar school friend, Gabriel Christian. But Gabriel, we'll get to you in just a moment. I want to pause to take 2 voice notes, and then we'll get back into that conversation. And Gabriel, you will share some thoughts with us once we get into that time. Philomena Pond and then Roosevelt Panthy. We're going to hear from 2 of these people.
I knew Mr. John as a child growing up. He was very close to my family. I knew him as a very generous, approachable, and kind person. He was not partial. He always had a listening ear for everyone, no matter who the person was. In July of 1974, I joined the Young Democrats, which later became Labor Youth Organization, after a delegates conference, which Mr. John emerged leader of the party. He also was the coordinator of the youth arm at that time. There I worked with him and found him very interesting and easy to work with. Since he had a very open mind towards ideas and suggestions to enhance the party structure and continuance, he was also a very humble person, because through the years, even if he was not leader, he kept working with the executive under any leader. He was elected as General Secretary for over 20 years, and I was his deputy. And Mr. John was loved by the people, especially the poor people. And I could recall my mother. My mother had loved Patrick so much that even when she went to church one day, the priest was preaching and saying Patrick have to go to hell, and Patrick John have to go to hell, and Patrick John have to go to hell. She couldn't take it. She couldn't stand it. She get up from the bench, walked up to the pulpit, and gave the priest what coming for him, and walk out of the Catholic Church. She sent to call Mr. John after that and asked him what religion he belonged to. And he told her that he was Anglican. So she joined the Anglican Church. Even when she passed into 2002, he was the deacon at the Anglican Church at the time, and he officiated her funeral. So Mr. John was loved deeply by the poor people of Dominica. I also considered him as a very bold, confident, and determined person. Whatever he set his mind to do, he will get it done. Is with heroism, he could face Britain to fight for independence for Dominica. He faced the Freedom Party, who was calling for a referendum, and went on to bring Dominica into independence as mandated by the popular majority. His vision and foresight can be seen in the housing projects that he made for the poor people of Dominica, like Cane Field, Point Michel, Shillingford's Crescent, and Bath Estate. He also organized the National Bank, which was called the Crapo Bank at the time, and the Aid Bank and the Canefield Airport, because his motto was all shall eat. And he always used to tell us he wanted to raise the poor people, to bring up the standards of poor people in Dominica, and he wanted to see Dominica move. He wanted to see Dominica. He had a vision for the country. He had a vision for the country. He wanted Dominica to be somewhere. His legacy will live on. Every Independent Day, we must remember Mr. John, because he was truly a hero among us. Even if they haven't named anything after Mr. John worked very hard, because he held many positions even before he became leader of the party, even before he became leader of the country. He held many positions in the government. He was also the mayor of Roseau, and he was also instrumental in getting the Waterfront and Allied Workers Union together, so he can never be forgotten.
I thank God today for giving me the opportunity to talk about our first Prime Minister, Patrick Roland John. I will read these two scriptures for you because he was a man of God, he loved his family, and he loved his country. Where there is no vision, the people perish. That's in Proverbs 29 and 18. And in Habakkuk 2 and 2 and 3, it say, write the vision and make it plain upon tablets, that he may run that read it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Patrick believed that he was called by God for the position that he held. And as the Premier of Dominica, and then the position as the first Prime Minister of Dominica, he was convinced in his heart that God was in control of that situation. So therefore, with passion and with purpose, he went towards it as a prophet would write the vision. And with the Labour Party, they wrote the vision and the Constitution for independence of our nation, getting us free forever. We are no longer under the slave, as a slave of England, but we were free. Not only that, the things that he did that was read in the eulogy was just fantastic. He was a man not only of vision, but he was a man who had dreams, and he was a man who saw his dreams fulfilled. There are times when I spend a little time with him, especially I'll talk about the day before independence and on Independence Night when his wife Desiree and my wife Joyce Mans, Patrick and myself, we sat on the table before bed. And he would just marvel at what God is doing and what God is going to do for Dominica. Having said that, I recognize that he knew his purpose, and he was not going to compromise his purpose, because conviction with compromise is not a witness. And that's what a pastor friend of mine, Matthew August, said, and I think it's good word. But I'm talking about Patrick's heart right now. And Patrick had a nice heart. He had a lion heart. He had a compassionate heart. And the things about his compassionate heart, he showed it in the love of the people. Even after he left when he left the Windsor Park or the gardens, I can't remember, but he went straight to the poor people home. He went to the Defense Force. He also went to the hospital and checked with the nurses. And he went to the police station, but his heart was always for the people and to see that the law of the people would be kept. I looked at this man because he energized the truth and the wisdom of God in me, because he was full of wisdom and truth. And now I could say I'm Dr. and Pastor Rosie Pantier because of his ideology and the way that he went towards his goal. Finally, I would say, I remember on the 4th of November, 1975, it was my mother's 50th birthday. She was at the hospital. She wanted to go home and spend Christmas with her children. And Patrick called up Dr. Sorrento and told him to allow my mother to go home because that was her last Christmas. And he allowed her to go home, and she did spend the last Christmas with her children. She died on the 16th of January, 1976. Another thing that I remember about Patrick, he also helped my brother, one of my brothers, to go to Jamaica to be able to take care of his kneecap, which was about having gangrene, and if we didn't go, they would either cut the foot or he would have died. But finally, I'm going to talk about in the Virgin Islands, We needed Patrick to come and talk to the people. And he went across the line and he brought Anthony Moyes with him to the Virgin Islands. And they were there and they spoke. And as they spoke, they told us that they would allow us, or all Dominicans that are coming home after 5 years, they would bring their goods or their utilities at home and it would be tax-free. He fulfilled that dream for Dominicans overseas. And I would just say I love this man. I love him so much because he was and is the greatest prime minister we had. He set the foundation for all other prime ministers of Dominica. I would say also he loved Sheridan Gregoire, Norris Prevost, Charles Savary, and the present Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerrit. He believed that the marriage with Charles Savary and Roosevelt Skerrit is the best thing that we need for our nation at that time. I will leave it at there because he had a conviction that God allowed him to see 4 prime ministers of the Labour Party out of the 6 that we have in Dominica's history. I thank God for him and may God bless his soul. Go, Pato. Desiree would always say Pato, and when she called him Pato, you could see the smile on his face. The joy that Patrick had was the love for God, the love for his children, and the love for his country. But when he heard that Desiree was pregnant, and he was so happy to know that he was going to have a child with his beloved wife, Desiree. So God bless them. And I pray that the Prime Minister, present Prime Minister, and the President would take care of those Prime Ministers of Dominica and help them and give them an honorable place, like a car every 5 years, and take care of the wives that they are left behind. God bless you. God bless Dominica.
We are now in a new millennium. Then we come together and start to build our small nation. But we have to face the reality of some of the problems we have now affecting we. Double standard killing the whole country, while some preaching division and enmity. The fuss and the fight will take us nowhere. So let's make a new commitment this year. Time to forget our differences and start to work hard as families, everybody. One flag, we are one blood. One people, one nation. One flag.
I wish every one of you would start to sing that now. Sorry, I sound like a DJ tonight.
Instead of criticizing and backbiting, high time with some nation building.
Some nation building.
Nation building. Let's work together.
I will come back to that song in a while. I want you all to know that Patrick Rowland John wrote that song. It's a Hunter that's singing it, okay? But it was written by the Right Honorable Patrick Rowland John. And when you think about that, you have to think of a man whose thoughts are penned in a song like this. You have to begin to understand that that's not something he went to buy somewhere. It's his thoughts that he has brought together in this great piece of penmanship. Gabriel Christian, I know that you are a lawyer by profession. Tonight, I'm the judge, so I make sure that everybody stays within my timing. A very good evening to you, my friend.
Good evening to you, my brother, and good evening to Mrs. John, Desiree John. Desiree, was it Dave or Joe that my father was godfather of?
Joe.
Joe Kentish. Good evening to Rennick, who I grew up with right on Didier Lane, and was it Shillingford Crescent, Rennick?
No,
And I believe the person next to you is no less a person than Simeon Joseph. Am I correct? Simeon, you're masked. I know it's Rennick, but I'm not sure. And of course, Jan Williams, Miss Dominica, Canada, and civic leader, and of course, Sheridan. Let me say, first of all, that it's a high honor and privilege for me to be here. I know that in recent times, we've had some issues with regard to the legacy of Patrick John, but let me make it absolutely clear. He was the father of the nation in that he brought political independence to bear. And I want to speak in a familial way because really I'm among family. And that's why I just wanted to remind, and I'm speaking here for my parents who were friends of Patrick John and Miss John, and she reminded me not long ago, I came home and she met me at my parents' house. And she said, Gabe, she said, Chris, what did she say? Well, you fellas having your things and you don't invite Patrick. I said, well, you know, Miss John, I regret to, first of all, I told her, well, you know, tell Mr. John, don't worry about those things because as for me, you know, I don't get invited either. And she said to me, and I quote, Bon Dieu, Christian, so long in the struggle. Well, that is a bitter fruit that we must taste, that the Labour Party that my parents came from, that almost everyone in Dominica, a humble station, had a part to play in, is no more. I respect the person who spoke, but at this point in time, I just want to again extend my condolences to Ms. John, family friend. I had done it before personally and privately through Sam, because Sam and I were going somewhere, I think, and towards Baltimore, and he put Miss John on the phone, and we had a very nice conversation. It's passing strange that sometimes folks don't understand that there are three things that we need to always do as a nation. That is to make the record. That is, we read, then we must write, and then we read, then we must think, and then we must write. And what we've done is, Judge Andrew and I, we have written in a way that today Dominicans know of all the good things Patrick John did. There were things that happened after 1979, but that was not all that it was to the man. There was a trade unionist. There was the mayor of Roseau. There was the carnival organizer. There was the Calypsonian. There was the person who brought us the Buy Local campaign and who organized with Sheridan and Norris Prevost what might have been, or what might be up to this day, the largest fair that we had. Ms. John, do you remember the fair at the St. Martin's School grounds? That Mr.
Yeah, where I
Prevost?
was the one who cut the ribbon there.
Yeah, well, if I were telling an untruth, you would know. She was an eyewitness. I mention these things because today we do not have those things. So Patrick John stood for the little man, the ordinary person having a stick in their country. Bath Estate Housing Scheme, River Estate Housing Scheme. Someone earlier mentioned the National Commercial and Development Bank. Most Dominicans would not know that prior to independence, the banks were dominated by Barclays Bank, England, and Royal Bank of Canada. So if you are making interest on government funds, for instance, or monies that have been loaned, that interest is going back to Canada and back to the United Kingdom. So his focus as a nationalist was to try to ensure that there was a bank that the government could use to ensure that any interest that would accrue, the interest accretion, would benefit the public purse. I want to also mention something about Mr. John that I believe is very important for us now, and that is personal modesty. I have an aunt, Auntie Floss. Everybody here knows Auntie Floss. She lives up by Reigate, I believe. That's not far from where Desiree lives and has lived, I believe, since before independence. Am I correct?
No, Gable, we live at Canefield, Roger. And that's
Roger. I said Reigate, but it's Roger. Roger.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that home, I believe, has been there since before independence. Am I correct?
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that he was known as a person of modest disposition. He never charged any exorbitant rate to the public purse for his personal home. I suspect he had his own home and he paid for it himself with that check that he would bring home to Desiree when he got his paycheck. So what we have to do as people in Dominica now is to look at our leaders and to extricate and extract from their experiences the best that we can take to help us move on to the next phase of life. Because it is true, today we enjoy a degree of independence, but there's a question mark over that independence. I don't believe Patrick John ever envisaged the wanton vending of our birthright in strange places. I believe that he put Dominicans first. I remember the comments made by my parents that were repeated tonight by one of the ladies, Miss Panfier. It was the case that if you're a person of African ancestry, or if you're a person of Carib or Canilago ancestry, you couldn't not only face a bank, you couldn't work at the bank. It was restricted in the way that employment was offered. And so we have moved beyond that, but only in a certain degree. And I would like it to be, as we look at 43 years, is to look again at three things. First, the primacy of the Dominican in Dominica. Are Dominicans put first as opposed to foreigners? That's number one. Number two, the modesty of our leaders. Our leaders following in the modest tradition of E.O. LeBlanc and Patrick John, in that they would look after making sure there's a library that young people could read books and bring it back when they're finished, and those kinds of things. Are they focused on agriculture of the kind that Sheridan Gregoire and Norris Privo tried to provide in that exposition, that fair at the St. Martin's School that Miss John had the honor and privilege of cutting that ribbon? And they focused on industry, so young boys and girls can go to places and get a skill, so they don't have to kill or break homes. And at this moment, I want to extend my condolences to the family of Norman Rule, who was murdered terribly, of course, a terrible killing. All killings are terrible, but certainly, brutal killing on the 29th of October. In the days that I was a student at a grammar school, under Mr. LeBlanc, only for a little bit, but primarily under Patrick John, we went to camps where Patrick John attended the camps with the Defense Force and the SSU. I was a cadet. And in that period, there was a Londonderry Youth Camp. Anybody here in this audience remembers the Londonderry Youth Camp? If any of you do, can you raise your hands? You're not in class? Thank you very much. All of you do, except Rodney. Rodney was maybe a little too young at that time. The reality is Patrick John and LeBlanc before him sought to create a society where there's equality of opportunity, where young people could get opportunity. There were problems. Perfection reigns only in heaven. He was not a perfect man. We've written about those things and we've tried to be as balanced as we can for the future. But the reality is, at this point in time, I believe it is of utmost importance that we remember him as our leader who brought us into independence and who I believe, in my heart, really meant the best. The question is, did he go about it all the time the way that one would have liked? We have questions about that, but that is besides the point. At this point in time, our duty, I believe, is to pay homage to the good that he did, pay homage to the children he brought here. And I want to leave this comment with this thought. Half the opposition of Dominica is under indictment, including Sam Christian, whose father, Wendell Christian, friend of the Johns, was the only fireman who stood up when the 77 strike took place and who had to train the Defense Force and police to man all the fire stations. And they threatened to bomb our house, including people aligned with the current president, Charles Savarin, threatened to bomb our house. That's what we have suffered. And today, our brother, like so many in the opposition, are under indictment. Are we in a democracy where because we have an opinion, we are threatened? People are arrested. You're charged with bogus charges. Well, we think that that is not what Patrick John would have wanted. I think Patrick John would have wanted a country where there's equality of opportunity and where we could all live freely in our beloved land. And so as I pay tribute to the good that he did, I'm mindful that Brother Simeon, who's an outstanding educator, Brother Renick John, who I grew up with, we all have an obligation to pen something, some essay, so that it can be a legacy. And I'll conclude by saying, on behalf of Mike and Rosie Douglas, Patrick John made it to the ripe old age. Was it 85 or 83? Was it 85 or 83?
83.
83. I say this because for the first time I will disclose to the public that Patrick John's life was saved in May 1979 by Mike and Rosie Douglas. When there were people, and I'm the only person alive from that meeting, when there's a plan to assassinate him, and Mike Douglas said, Dominica is a small country. When you start killing people, where will it end? Where will it end? That was the plan, and those men, they may have had their differences with Patrick, which were later resolved, but they saved his life. And Rennick, I remember you outside Rosie's Lion Estate on the, I think, 12th October, 2000. And I said that to you, did I not? Rennick, you can answer me.
What he said? Repeat what he said.
I said on the 12th October outside Rosie's Lion Estate, I mentioned to you the plot against your dad and how Rosie and his brother Mike were critical in snuffing out that plot. Did I not?
Yes, I can recall that.
Absolutely. He was by fortune waiting to go in. So,
Yep.
you know, I'm not saying this now because Mr. John is dead, but it needs to be known to the whole world, the pivotal role that both Mike and Rosie played, not only in saving Patrick John's life, but in really bringing back the Labour Party. And I hope one day there will be another Labour Party in Dominica, because right now, as far as I'm concerned, there's none. Thank you very much. Bless you all.
Thank you,
Mr. John.
Thank you.
On
Yeah,
behalf
but-
of my family,
Yeah.
our condolences again.
Thank you.
Simeon, you wanted to just
No,
just echo something.
I just want to confirm what Gabriel said, because that's something Patrick told me himself, that there was a plan afoot to assassinate him as a result of that period, and he was fully aware of it. And I have a voice clip of his, which we will hear one day.
Wow. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Given my brother attended youth camp in Londonderry under Earl Johnson. Just wanted you to know that.
Gabe, you remember we attended 1975 Rhode Islands Cadet Camp? Huh? You remember that?
Absolutely we did. Absolutely. And those are the kinds of things that we try to bring back. And I want to just give a shout out to brother Simeon Joseph, because when the Cadet Corps program started back in Dominica in 2000, he was one of the critical, Alicia Abraham, Christian, and Simeon Joseph were critical leaders in that regard. Thanks again, Simeon. Much appreciated.
All right, guys, we're going to pause again. We're going to take 4 voice clips. They're not very long, but 4 voice clips and 4 interesting people that we again go to listen to. DC Joseph, Alex Bruno, Egbert Germain, and former Prime Minister Oliver James Serafin. Let's pay attention to these 4 notes, please.
Patrick Roland John, a name that evokes tons of emotions, some of which is negative, but most people will agree that the majority is on the positive side. And I say that based on the legacy that he left behind. Patrick John, or PJ as he was affectionately known, he was a man small in stature.
Could you all give the names of the people as soon as they start?
And dreams. It was those big ideas and those big dreams, along with love for country and people, that was the driving force behind him. It was that force which motivated him and propelled him to aspire for greatness. It was that force that pushed him to represent his country and his people in so many different arenas, and in the process, giving so much of himself back to his people and, of course, his country. Patrick John was a trade unionist. He was a politician. He was an educator, a culturalist, sportsman, songwriter, among so many others. Regrettably, we never really got to realize his true greatness. However, in the short space of time that was allotted to him, he showed us what a visionary and forward-thinking individual he was. He was a man way ahead of his time, and I think most people would agree. He was a great man. He was a family man. a spiritual man, a kind and generous man, among so many other wonderful attributes. Sadly, he is not here with us tonight to truly appreciate the love and respect that he so greatly deserved in life. Not just as the father of our independence, but as most people would say, and I dare say most of them would agree, that he was the father of our nation. I am certain that we all would have liked nothing more than to have Mr. John here with us tonight, accepting his flowers. But unfortunately, the universe had other plans. Me, however, I am comforted in knowing that his family is here tonight to witness and to appreciate and to accept on his behalf all the accolades deserving of a true Dominican hero. Patrick, Joel, and John, gone, but never will be forgotten.
I decide to let my contribution to kudos to our heroes on behalf of Patrick John be a call to the younger Dominicans, those people who were certainly born after 1980, to take a moment and reflect on the story of Patrick John. Because Patrick John's story is Dominica's story. We are a people who are very well entwined with the oral traditions. People say things, we listen, and we repeat what we hear. Not very often we document the history, the things, the life of our people, and probably we should do that a bit more. Because had we been doing that, the story of Patrick John would have been better told. There are aspects of the Patrick John story that I've read in places, and after having spoken to Patrick John for over 2 decades steady, constantly researching him, I failed to see the person about whom the stories are told publicly, in Patrick privately. It is simply just night and day. One of the biggest myths about Patrick is that he was obsessed with power. I would like to place on the record that Patrick was not preoccupied with power. Patrick was consumed with a determination to assist people. And had he, I believe, known to what extent he could have stretched his power, he might have done that. Because all Patrick wanted to do was to do good by the people who supported him. He once told me that he could never be a money man and walk down the street and see somebody hungry. He'd rather die broke. Patrick cannot be said to be a corrupt person. He didn't even have a corrupting acumen, a corrupting idea about him, far less to have a corruption bone. And the Patrick, who I know, who's quite deserving as a hero, had he been here today, he would have said, I'm not really a hero, I served the people, I did what I had to do. I mean, somebody had to do what I had to do. So if you think I'm a hero, it's fine, but I don't consider myself a hero. That's what Patrick would have said. So alas, Patrick has gone to meet his maker, and he's not here to say he does not want to be. Because Patrick was never, again, as I said, preoccupied with becoming and wanting much. So now that he has gone to the wild beyond, I want to commend Q for taking the initiative to recognize one of the most deserving Dominicans in their kudos to our heroes.
A tribute to my old friend and brother, the late Honorable Patrick Rowland. My acquaintance with Pat, as I fondly call him, began many moons ago we lived one street from each other in Roseau. At a very early age, we began our elementary studies at the Roseau Boys School. We were put in ABC, equivalent to kindergarten today. Our elementary education then ended when we achieved Standard 7, the highest elementary level at that time. A new phase in our life was our attendance at secondary school. We both went to the St. Mary's Academy. In those days, there was no electricity in homes in Dominica. Kerosene lamps were the order of the day. Not conducive to studying, however. Hence, we attended night studies at school from Monday to Thursday, 7 to 8:30 p.m. In addition, we studied by candlelight at each other's home, where very often we shared a meal together, eating from the same plate. We also studied on the street lights. Yes, these were real humble days indeed. At the Mary's Academy, we were involved, besides our academics, in glee club, in tumbling, in sports, in student council activities, in religious activities, etc. I must add, our after-school activities was looking for mangoes, going in search of mangoes with a third student or classmate, Marcellus Thomas, who formed what was called at the time the Three Musketeers, Patrick, Eggy, and Marcy. Pat and I were selected in our senior year to join the DGS students to participate in the Inter-Island School Tournament in St. Vincent. Upon our return from Dominica, we were the only two students invited to participate in the island trials in the selection of a national team for Dominica's cricket. We sat our Cambridge exams in fifth form, our final year at school, together with three other classmates, Jones Murphy, Errol Larrock, and Marcellus Thomas. The Christian Brothers, then, before that, we were very successful at the GCE or the Cambridge exams. The St. Mary's Academy had 100% passing. The Christian Brothers recruited both of us to be sports masters and teachers at our alma mater. Pat resigned from teaching after a couple of years because he and the new principal, Brother Houlihan, could not see eye to eye. He went to Whitchurch, where he worked as a clerk. He became an assistant shipping manager. Later, he was an overseer and leader in the union, an organizer and leader in the union. Pat was, for a period, mayor of Roseau. He was an organizer of carnival bands. He was involved in calypso songwriting. He was involved in national sport. In fact, he was the fixture on Dominica's national football team. He became people's representative in Dominica. He went into politics, finally becoming premier of our associated state, Dominica. But his crowning achievement was taking Dominica, the associated state, to nationhood and becoming our first prime minister. Well done, my friend, my brother. My thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. Rest now in peace. and may you enjoy an eternal reward.
That was Brother Egbert Germain. And the last voice note we will hear is from former Prime Minister Oliver James Serafin.
My journey with Patrick John began as executive members of the Dominican Labour Party under the leadership of Edward LeBlanc, who, upon resigning, there was in fact a desire to find a replacement, and of which Ronald Amor and Etienne were contenders. And I then embarked with one or two other members of the executive to ensure that we had a number of persons of the party to be registered, and that was done effectively. And Patrick emerged as the leader of the party at the convention in Portersville. In 1975, he again brought me in as a candidate in the Roseau Valley and the Kenfield constituency, where upon winning that seat, he appointed me as Minister of Agriculture, Lands, Fisheries, Cooperatives, and we went on that journey. As Minister of Housing, we negotiated successfully for the housing projects for Bath Estate and Kenfield. And then, interestingly enough, Patrick is particularly focused about the international airport. His desire to see an international airport in Dominica also was one that was in the interest of other leaders, including LeBlanc before him. But the Sir Bruce Greatbatch of the British Development Division had indicated very, very strongly at that meeting with other ministers of government that there would never be an opportunity for the British to put in any money into the international airport, because there were 4 other airports within a 100-mile radius that had capacities for international travel. He, however, indicated a desire, if there was a possibility, to have had an airport closer to Roseau, and of course, having had some experience in that regard through the ownership of Dominica Airways, where my pilots had indicated to me that Kenfield had an opportunity for an airport. That was presented, and consequently, Patrick John then showed his very enormous desire to see things happen by entering an aircraft and landing on the Kenfield bypass near Simon, which of course allowed for the conviction that there would have been an airport possibility, which we got. Patrick Jones was enamored with the idea that we should have the little man walk tall. And as a result, in every effort that he made, everything he established through village councils, through the appointments of justice of the peace, or the appointments of persons who he thought had the capacity from the grassroots to enjoin, especially in the organization structures of the kin cooperatives, the fisheries cooperatives, the bailiff cooperatives. These are persons who will come from a very humble status, but were allowed to see that they could be privileged to becoming leaders, especially the village council persons who were embracing the opportunity for leadership at the grassroots level. Patrick was humble. He was concerned about persons in a very empathetic way. And in that empathy that he demonstrated, allowed a lot of persons who had ideas and vision to allow their visions to be established, as did persons like Ben Chishu. For Dominica through the cabinet. And this song, One Nation, One Flag, is a mantra well deserved so many years later as a consequence of his conviction that Dominica should remain united.
For the many of you still listening to us at 4 minutes to 8 o'clock, we want you to know that this is the 7th edition of the Kudos to Our Heroes. And in this independence season, we are honoring Honorable Patrick Roland John. Tonight, we're going to go beyond 8 o'clock. And for those of you in the Spotlight fans, we're going to steal some of your time. And we are grateful to Fadina for allowing us doing that this evening. So we're going to keep going until we're done tonight, all right? So if your cocoa tea is finished, get some ginger.
He if you shine.
We're going to include your calls in just a moment, but I want to do this. I want you to hear this to take you back a little bit and probably give you a little bit of nostalgia. Let's do this. No, that's not what I want to do at all. I want to do this. All right, I'll get back to that at some point. I'll get back at some point to that. Mr. G, I'll get to you in just a while. And those of you who have been waiting to add your own, 10 cents and 2 cents and $6, we're going to do that. And we do not want you to be very long this evening. Think of what you want to say and say it well. Be crisp and to the point, all right? So the lines are open, 449-3095, 3096, 3097. You can do the DG thing on 616-4257 or the overseas line on 305-432-9624.
For people like you.
And of course, all the lines are already going. Good evening. This is kudos to our heroes. We're honoring Patrick Roland John.
Pastor Randy Rodney, good evening to you. Good evening to the team. Good evening to Desiree, my good friend, Simeon, and all the others. And I want to first of all thank Q95 for recognizing Dominicans who have served people and country. But tonight we are giving Patrick his flowers. Let me tell you who Patrick really is, because Patrick was like a father to me. A man with a big heart, a humble man, a God-fearing man, a hard-working man, a simple man, a caring person, a man of integrity, a man who never forget where he came from, a man of worth, a man of dignity, a man of courage, a man for the poor, a man of wisdom. That is the Patrick John I knew. And at Patrick home, I drank the most expensive rum. When you see I go to Patrick home and you have a whiskey there, whether it's gold or blue or black, once Copel come, he will tell Desiree, you know where it is, fix him up. So that is a good man. That's a man who has served. And I hope in the not too distant future, something will be named after Patrick Roland John, because if it was not for Patrick Roland John, we would not be independent. And I don't think it is fair to have for us not to have something after Patrick John. And even in our schools, that lesson should be taught. Lesson should be taught us of the man who led Dominica into independence. I want to say thanks to that great family. I'm happy. I am delighted to associate myself with that family, and I just pray God's blessing on them. Thank you so very much, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Copel. Good evening on the telephone. This is kudos to our heroes. We're honoring Patrick Roland John.
Good evening, Pastor Rodney.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening to Simeon. Good evening to Renick. And I am tempted to say good evening to the former First Lady. I want you all to help me out here. I know in America, the president is head of state and is also head of government, but in Dominica it's different. The prime minister is head of government and the president is head of state. So whose wife should be referred to as First Lady?
Former First Lady is right there.
If you're comparing the American model, I think you need to draw out of that is the principle. So Desiree is here; she's the former First Lady.
Former First Lady.
Well, you see, if I may, no, I cannot sit here and allow that. You see, we have two different systems of government.
That's right.
The British system of government and the American system of government. Anything about First Lady is the American system of government. So nothing of that applies to Dominica. Mm-hmm. There's no such title under any protocol, any policy within our system of government that applies to First Lady. They don't call Boris Yeltsin wife First Lady. They never called Tony Blair wife First Lady. Okay, it's the wife of the Prime Minister.
Okay,
or the wife of His Excellency.
The wife
so
of
that
the
is not something for Dominica at all.
Okay, caller, go on.
Okay, thank you, Simeon. So good evening to the wife of the former Prime Minister, Desiree John. Pastor Rodney, I would like to start with the Freeport. Somebody mentioned about the Freeport, and I am saying that to say how these people were very famous. They were very good at spreading propaganda and trying to destroy people. Sorry, I want to take you back to 1983. You will not remember, so I'm going to tell you what happened. we were playing a game of cricket between the Gospel Mission Church and the police station in Kulibi Street. Softball cricket, and somebody hit a ball next to Mrs. Isla Prosper's house.
Oh, right.
And one of you retrieved the ball. I can't remember if it was you or Jonathan. But the person stayed sometime before coming. And then they came with they said a bag there with a lot of books and things in it. I was the police there for those who wondering. I went and I got the bag, and in that bag, I took it back to the police station, and in that bag I see a lot of documents, and I realized it was the bag of a politician. And I saw some documents referring to the Shah, and remember there was a saying that a certain politician wanted to sell out half of Dominica or half of the North to the Shah. And I saw and I went through that document with a fine tooth comb, and I never see anything of that nature. So I just mentioned that to show you how those people were good at spreading propaganda. Mr. Crispin Gregoire mentioned that Patrick reminded him of two former African leaders. One of them was Julius Nyerere. I can't remember who was the first one he said. But what Mr. Gregoire didn't know, that Patrick John was an admirer of Julius Nyerere. That's why he named his son Nyerere.
Okay.
And I can remember it was in Parliament when he said his wife had given birth to a son, and his name is Man John. And then the people in Parliament started laughing. Then he explained that MAN was the acronym for Matthew Anthony Neri John.
Anderson.
Anderson Neri John.
And that's Neri John, yeah. So I was oddly, my name is Edin Kotzenval, and I was oddly to Patrick John. And then I can remember that Mr. John was a very religious man, an Anglican, and every Sunday we used to go to church religiously. His wife and himself and I. And after service, we used to go to the home of the gentleman who wrote the words of Pond, Reverend Pond in Loubier. We used to go to the house of Reverend Pond in Loubier. And just three of us, I say that to say that he didn't have any big entourage of police officers following him all over the place. I can remember I had a picture which Maria destroyed with Mr. John in the band Thunderbirds. I think it was 1976. And it was only Jean Pestin and I, Julian David, Desiree, and Patrick. There were not a big entourage of police officers following all over the place. We used to go at Carmen. I'm sure Desiree can remember that. The lady who had board and blow, I think she was from Trinidad.
Yeah.
This was the
That
famous
was his brother.
restaurant at the time. I think she introduced roti in Dominica. And it was Julian David, Bob Peters, and those people. So I don't know why our present leader is so obsessed of having so many policemen around him. Now, finally, it was Gabriel who mentioned about assassination.
Yes.
You know, that's not the first time they wanted to assassinate Patrick John. When he was Minister of Public Works, living at Cornwall Street, they threw an explosive at his home. I drove the CID guys to investigate, and we saw the crack in the wall. And they say it's a breadfruit. There was a breadfruit close to the tree. They say it's a breadfruit that fell on the house. And finally, Pastor Rodney, you say you feel like a DJ tonight?
Yes.
So, Mr. GJ, before you go, I would like you to find the time to play Flowers by Dice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senval. Mr. G, I mean, I want to get back to you, but let me just take one more call, all right? And I'll get right back to you so we can have a little power on this. On the telephone, good evening. This is Kudos to Our Heroes. We're honoring Patrick Roland John. Hello. She was from Grenada, Trinidad. Okay, thanks for the correction. Thanks for the correction. Mr. G, you know, we could sit here and hear so much more about the little man with a big heart. We heard Renick talk about his father, and Desiree talk about her husband, and we heard the Calypsonian, the footballer. I didn't know he played both football and cricket. You know, both football and cricket. And we heard so many things. And I said to Simeon after the funeral that he educated me when he did that eulogy there, because there are so many things that I didn't know. There were so many things that I had in my mind thinking, what's the possibility of that? How did that happen? And so on. And there's so much to know about this man whom we really have cheated ourselves
And Rob too.
by not allowing him the opportunity. And there's one gentleman who's still alive, a certain gentleman called Dr. Sam Chand. I remember him saying at a conference one time, he said that the people who have visions bigger than themselves usually find themselves in trouble with those who can only see the next steps that they're going to make.
But can I punctuate that with a statement?
Yes.
Before Mr. Gregoire? There's a saying that goes, great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds.
Repeat that again, Simeon.
Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition
from mediocre minds.
mediocre minds.
All right. I hope I can recall. I can go back to write that again. Mr. G, let's hear from you after we've heard all of those tonight.
Well, first thing I would say, I have a little slight difference of opinion from Simeon. I mean, whether you want to say First Lady is in England or not, what I can say tonight is Desiree is looking fabulous.
Of course. And but Mr. Gregoire, she doesn't have to be a first lady for that, you know. You know, she looks fabulous anyhow. She's a great lady.
No, but Simeon, I mean, everyone, we must remember Desiree on the campaign trail.
Yes.
You see Desiree sitting there tonight, but I mean, you know, if you see Desiree on the campaign trail, you've never seen a fiercer campaigner than Desiree John, right? The most effective campaigner in terms of women that I've ever seen in Dominica. No other woman has surpassed her tenacity on the campaign trail, and Patrick John valued that. Now, but before I go on, Pastor Rodney, I wanted to do a quick thing. First of all, let's thank Ferdinand I didn't really have to call Ferdinand. She called me and said, you know, Mr. G, I know you're doing this thing for PJ tonight, and really, I'm going to give you the time. And I think she did so to a large extent because, you know, there was such a great relationship between her dad, Ferdinand, and PJ, right? I think she always appreciated that, and she was very quick to come and say, listen, I know you're doing this, take my time, yeah? I want to take a moment to Pastor Rodney to acknowledge all these people who are on Facebook. And there's so many people on Facebook. They're making comments, they're joining us, they're with us here tonight. Let me just call a couple of the names just to let them know that we're embracing them and we recognize and acknowledge and appreciate them. I see Peter Carbon there. I'm not going to be able to read their comments because of time. I see Peter Carbon, I see Irving Joseph, I see Francis Fontaine, I see Celia King, I see Nazarene Prince, I see Marilyn Pascal, I see Carl Kofi James, and I see Didi Easter, and there's so many more. I will try to call a few more of the names as we go along later. And if we have a time, maybe we can maybe one or two little comments from them, but everybody there is highly appreciative of what we're doing here tonight. Pastor Rodney, very quickly, here's what I would say, right? I knew Patrick John personally. I mean, in the interest of full disclosure, Desiree is my cousin. So, but Patrick is a man that I saw in the Windsor Park. I saw him playing football. I saw him playing cricket. I saw him with Thomas Baptist and these people arguing. This man was an intellectual as well. You know, many people don't know that. If you listen to people like PG and Thomas Baptist talking, you'd swear you're somewhere in some big debating society. Those guys were really good. They were articulate. I mean, Thomas Baptist, Desiree can recall, is one of the most articulate people we saw on the campaign trail, right? He ran for the Roseau seat against Eugenia Charles. But even more than that, Patrick John, the man of the vision, he really believes in enterprise. And that's one of the things where our minds met. I will never forget, you mentioned the trade show, Gable, that we had at the St. Martin School. It's one of the most fascinating things in my life. There have been other trade shows in Dominica, but I remember when we had this garment manufacturers cooperative, we were employing over 125 people. He gave us all the concessions that we needed for that without even batting an eyelash. All of the duty-free and tax-free concession, 125 people employed. And when we went to him and said, listen, we want to have a trade show to promote garments and to promote all the things that we are manufacturing in Dominica and producing. And he said immediately, okay, yes, I will give you all assist. He gave us $50,000. Now, $50,000 may sound like a small amount, but in those days, that was a huge amount of money. Huge amount of money in those days. So I will never forget that, because he valued the enterprise, the spirit of enterprise. Again, what that adds to is in fact, that solidifies the notion of the man who wanted to always have the little man rise up. You wanted to see ordinary people do extraordinary things. And he had that vision of transforming the economy of Dominica into an export-driven economy. He did not want to see us go to retail, because when we go to do, and we will, I think Gabu and Dr. Irving and I and so on, some other people, Simeon, and we will do a lecture series on the lives and times of legacies of all our leaders, starting from Frank Barron as the chief minister in the post-colonial days, to Edward Leblanc, to Patrick John, and to the people coming after him, like Eugenia Charles and O.J. Serafin and all, and Edison James, and now Piero, and then, and Ruzi, and then now Mr. Skerritt. But I think what we do, that we will find that Patrick John's legacy will look vast compared to many of the others. Some of them didn't have much of an opportunity. Frank Barron was only there for a short while and so on. But really and truly, we will see really the strength of this man's legacy. That is the way I want to put it, Pastor Roddy, because in the interest of time, I don't want to go and rehash a lot of stuff, because the historians like Gabriel Christian and Irving Andrew will help us to recall, and people like Simeon and Alex Bruno and all, and Lennox Onitsha, they will help us to recall all of the achievements of Patrick Roland John. But what will come out of that, we will get a sense of the man's vision, the man's heart, and what he really wanted for his country. So as everybody else has said, if this man had been given a chance to implement all of the ideas that he had in his vision and the plans that he had for Dominica, I think we would have been a better place than we are today. Pastor Rodney, let me just go back to you.
Mr. G, thanks for that. I wanted you to share that, because when we, begin to talk about people like PJ, there are little things that I've learned, as I grew along. And one of the things that I've learned is that the value of a man's life is not measured by its duration, but by its donation. And when you can think of what this man was able to do in all spheres, and that's what fascinates me. Some people wait for a big push, a big job, a big position to get something done. But when you are able to use every opportunity to impact lives, no matter the status, that in my mind is evidence of donation. So that whether it was football or cricket or calypso or whatever it was, PJ's hand was there with all his strength. So he put forward his best shot in every place. And for me, these are some of the things that we need to be able to magnify, to amplify.
But you see,
so that people understand that you do not need nomenclature. Right? Necessarily to do what you were called to do.
Exactly. But you see, precisely, and you see that has to speak to the essence of the man. He didn't do things for his own personal aggrandizement.
Right.
To append achievements or accolades to his name. And there's some leaders who do that. They do not do it for the genuine interest of the development of people. Their main purpose for doing it is to say, I did it. This is about me. Now, that is what distinguishes service from self-service.
Right.
So if you are a self-serving person, everything you do will be about to aggrandize yourself. But if you are genuinely interested in service, you will realize that, hey, everything I do must be for the good of the other, must be for the upliftment of the other, must be, instead of aggrandizing myself, must be to magnify other people's potential and capabilities and achievements. And that is what is at the heart of genuine leadership. Leadership that says, okay, I am going to dig deep into the potential of people and allow them to stretch forth and beyond all the possibilities that they can be. And so that is where you begin to understand the essence of personalities when it comes to leadership.
Right. Having understood that and having heard all of that, Desiree, I want to come back to you and ask you something else, because when you have someone like this who is practically giving of themselves, and Gable made some comments in that regard that you know, you give your best self, and sometimes your best self is not received as your best self, either because of the way you have presented or the way it is perceived, right? You as a wife standing by a man like Patrick, and I'm going to use that again because, like I said, that's a thought that I've had for years. Patrick says, you know, we want to develop a free port in the Portsmouth area. And then a whole sort of criticism is unleashed on him. Give us a picture, right, of the man when he comes home, and how do you see him carry on that sort of thing? You know, does he get angry about it? Does he lash out at somebody? And we have heard about his magnanimity. I want to hear from you. How does Patrick manage that? How did you see this man manage those circumstances? Are you muted, Desiree?
She needs to check her mic.
Yes, are you hearing me now?
No, yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, well, Patrick never lashed out at me. Whenever things were rough with him, and so he would discuss, but mind you, he never brought in any of his work decisions that he's doing or anything, discussed it with me, because that was work. He was a government minister, so he never brought in government work into our home, you know, to say that I being a wife, that he's going to discuss, oh, he's going to do this tomorrow, they're planning to do this, they're planning to do that. No, he never did say that. So he never lashed out at anyone. He would come home and say, well, you know, things were not so bright for me today and so, but to have full discussions of his work, he did not do that. He was a personal person when it comes to his work, dealing with the work. So much so that when he fired Mike Douglas from the government, Mike met me one day and he said, girl, I'm not talking to you again, you know, because you knew damn well that Patrick John was going to fire me. I spoke to you the day before and you never said anything like that to me. I said, but I didn't know. I got to hear it on the radio just as anybody else, any member of the public.
Wow. Wow. For me, Simeon, that speaks volumes of the personality and character of the man.
You see, definitely. Right? You see, again, Pastor Rodney, this is one of the sad realities of Patrick John.
Right.
People did not take time to get to know him.
Very well misunderstood.
Exactly. Everything about Patrick John was what people said about him. Now, one of the most annoying things, and Randy can tell you that about Patrick John, he never ever sought to defend himself, to give his version of the story. He always felt that in time, people will get to know him, and he didn't feel that he needed to defend his truth.
Yep.
He never felt that he had to defend his truth, and his conscience was his guide. And personally for me, I can tell you, that is one thing I got very annoyed with him for. Because when I saw Patrick was coming in his twilight years, I said, well, PJ, when are you going to go and just tell your side of the story? You know, he said, well, he would always think, well, okay, he doesn't want to be the center of controversy, or he doesn't want to be someone who would like to draw attention to himself and those kind of things. There. So that is one of the sad realities, and you know, that is why I can tell you. I'll just say very briefly. In death, I am happy to know that the person whom I knew for over 40 years of my life is now coming to be known for who he really was. And one of the things that I am gratified about after doing the eulogy is literally the thousands of people who messaged me. I mean, I had calls from Australia, New Zealand, Austria, Germany, Finland, Denmark. Desiree can tell you. And who just wanted to say thank you, because all the years I heard of Patrick John, I never knew him. All of those things there. And so this is what I think and think. I think one of the sad realities, though, for me, has been the efforts by some, nonetheless, to continue to taint his character and reputation after the eulogy, because people felt that nothing good should have been said about him, that he should have just been died and laid to rest in peace. But I mean, I can say one thing, and the John family will know that I did promise Patrick when he died. Patrick the man, the myth, his mission, his legacy, and the lessons would have to be made known to the Dominican people. And I mean, they tell you, some people speak louder in death than life. Patrick is one of those persons.
If I may butt in a little.
Yes.
In my house, in my home, the aggressive one between Patrick John and Desiree John was Desiree John. And I think I am still the aggressive one in my home now.
You had to say that, eh?
On an ant, you know. If you come and you fight with Patrick John, he would even lay down for you to
fight with him.
On him. And that is where we always got into a problem, you know, because Patrick would give, he gave until it hurt, you know.
That is true.
And Patrick John was thinking ahead of his time.
Thanks for sharing that, Desiree. I mean, for me, it was important that you share that for very many reasons. Now, I'm going to do that. I promise you this. I'm going to take a pause, and I'm going to play the song again that Patrick wrote, and then Mr. G will get back into doing some of our presentations, if you don't mind that, right?
Before we go on the cusp of what Desiree just said, Pastor Rodney, Mr. Gregoire, all the members of the panel, I want to pause at this moment to say thank you to Desiree John. Dominicans do not know the sacrifice that Desiree made the last 5 years of Patrick's life to take care of him, to nurture him, to bathe him, to feed him, to be there for him, to sacrifice even socializing. I remember when my family came down in 2017 and we had a reunion, and I said, Desiree must be there. And Desiree said, but how am I going to do Patrick? And I had to arrange for a transportation to go to her, take her up. And I want us at this moment to really say thank you to Desiree for the hard work that you did, for the sacrifices you made, for having to go up and down and hop a bus without vehicles, go into the hospital. One of the reasons, and I want to end here, I happened to have gone to my home one mid-morning, and I did not have a vehicle. And Desiree remember that story. And when I took the corner by the road, I saw Desiree sitting on the side of the road on the bench with her bag of sheets and pillowcases and everything to go home. She said she had just been to see Patrick, to go home to change, to she and Fiona, to return to the hospital. That is when I said at that moment, I am going to be there until the end. And then 8 o'clock at night, Desiree wouldn't know how she would be getting home, but she would be at the hospital. Early morning, 6 o'clock, Desiree would know she'd be getting to the hospital, but she'd be the first one to be there and to stay with Patrick until the end. So I cannot allow this program to go on without saying To Desiree, thank you for what you did. Thank you for the sacrifice that you make. And you are, Patrick is a hero, but you were the heroine in his life, especially in this last 6 years of his life.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, let me just add, Pastor Rodney.
Yes.
That Simeon, like you, I mean, we have to appreciate Desiree. Not just for the last 5 years of Patrick's life. Remember, Patrick has been in politics for a very long time. And so she had to make a lot of sacrifices from the very beginning. I mean, it's not an easy life to be the wife of a politician, especially in those days. So I know the kind of sacrifices that Desiree made, even in those days, because politicians always have to be on the road. Somebody has to look after the home and ensuring that that politician's life is organized, because they don't have time to organize their own life. She was responsible for Patrick John. But let me just say something that I mentioned.
Mr. G, if I may just interject, not only in the home life, but what about the years that he spent in jail? I had to be there, you know. I had to be at the courts. I had to be getting lawyers from overseas, you know, going around begging from supporters for money, you know, and in and out of a jail. It wasn't easy. You've seen your husband behind barbed wire, and then you cannot touch him. It's just a matter of talking, and then there's an officer who is listening to every conversation that you're holding. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy life with Patrick and I, you know, politically wise.
I'm sure.
And I just wanted to add quickly, Pastor Rodney, this is something that I've never said publicly. I think I may have mentioned it to Simeon. After the trade show we did at the St. Martin's School, I think Patrick liked the things I said. He liked the things that we were doing. He looked around in that trade show, and he showed the extent of product that Dominica was producing and the kind of skills and that came out of this thing, not only in terms of product, but also in talents. And then, I remember the day after, somebody, Erin Kotzenval, I think, mentioned Bob Peters and Julian David. I think it was the day after, Patrick John sent Bob Peters after me, and he said, "Boy, Sheridan, boy, the chief wants you, boy. You need to run for him in Roseau." And I said, "But, Bob, but I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman." But Patrick John kept Bob Peters after me. I used to go to Tokers and hang out with the guys, on the steps there by Diane Peters. He kept after me for a whole year. And I told him, really, I couldn't make it, Bob. I have to stay in the business. Somebody has to stand to something else. Everybody can't be a politician. But maybe that is one of the things I kind of regretted in a sense. Maybe if I had been there, who knows what kind of difference I could have made. But then my heart really was in business, not in politics, up to today. But I want to just thank Patrick John for at least recognizing that I may have been able to contribute something to Dominican's life at that time. So Desiree, really, I want to thank you so much for Patrick. Huh? I mean, all you've done for him, really. We have to acknowledge that. Pastor Rodney?
Thank you again for sharing that. And that's why I was happy when she made the comment she made, because sometimes, you never know, what blows the spouse gets. And I talk about blows in all senses of the word, in terms of the pressure that comes to bear. And for a leader like that in particular, who will not, retaliate, who will always be calm, who will allow people to do whatever, who would sacrifice himself to give to other people. I know I have seen that before, that wives and children suffer as a result of that, and very often the people on the outside don't see that at all. So Desiree, we all say thanks to you for standing by Mr. John in all those years. Nothing moves me more, though, than his desire for bringing the nation together. Somebody wanted to say something else?
Yeah, Pastor Rodney, can I ask Simeon a question real quick?
Yes.
Sure.
Simeon, hi, this is Emmanuel Fenn.
Hi.
You said that Mr. John was misunderstood during his life in public office. Can you outline why he was misunderstood?
That is an anomaly in the sense you could say misunderstood and misjudged. I hold the thesis of how Patrick John is viewed, and it is like this. The thesis that I propose is that, one, there is and has always been a sector of the Dominican public who always felt that Patrick John should never be in any leadership role in this country. Gabriel Christian alluded to the fact that at one time in Dominica, if you were poor, black, or from the country, there was no room or space for you in Dominica. And anybody who came from the country in the 60s and 70s will tell you that it was never easy being poor, being black, or being from the country in Dominica. And Patrick John was one person who sought to dismantle that archaic structure of our social landscape. And so he would never have been liked for that. And I think as a result of this, there was a vast section of the Dominican public that felt that this man should never be, this man should never lead, this man should never be in charge, this man should never be the president, because as far as that sector of the Dominican population is concerned, he should not be thinking. And so every effort was made to paint a picture of Patrick John that was not. Now, as I have said, when people said Patrick John was corrupt, I'm not sure, Emmanuel, if you remember the days when people said that Patrick John had a bank in Barbados or a hotel in Barbados, that he had bank accounts in Switzerland and all these different kind of places. To this date, non-proven. I don't know if you remember people who said that Patrick. Let me give you two. I'm going to give you two concrete examples that I know from my involvement in the life of Patrick John that were not true. When it was rumored that Patrick John built his house at Canefield on the expense of Dominican taxpayers because of corruption, and that was taken around Dominica. And Patrick John had his house in Canefield before he entered politics and before he went into government. Yep. Today, when people hear about leaders of the country building houses on resources, they dismiss it as if it's a piece of cake or some sweetie, you know? And these are the very same people dismissing this notion today who made these accusations yesterday. The second incident I want to tell you is when at one time they said, I don't know if people remember Patrick John was in the lodge. And at one point, people said Patrick John was dabbling in witchcraft, a la Eric Gary. Now, this is something that struck me because I used to go to Mount Bruce regularly. And I stood up on the top of Constitution Hill one night and I heard politicians claim that Patrick John had a shrine at his home somewhere. That was a Friday night. Now, Patrick John at that time had gone away. I'm not sure if Desiree remember that Patrick, Leo Austin, Desiree, Leo Austin had gone to Germany. Desiree remember that? On that trip to Europe?
Yes, I can.
Right. And that meeting was while they were overseas. So I decided, because I knew Patrick John House very well, the Saturday morning, I'm going to steal my way to Mount Bruce. Now, at that time, Neri, my mother, and my sister Margaret used to babysit Neri whenever PJ or Desiree were away, used to travel. So he used to be at our home. So I lied to my mother, and I told my mother that they forgot to bring Neri's toy to our home, but it was only to go to find out if Patrick had that Obia shrine at his home. And I went to Mount Bruce, and I searched all the kitchen, the storeroom, the cellar. I went into Desiree and Patrick's room, kitchen, and I saw no Obia shrine. And that goes to tell you the extent of which people were telling stories about Patrick John, only to create some kind of story about them. And the things that used to be said. I mean, you would go up there and you look for things that they said. At one time, they were said Patrick had cases of money under his bed. Does you remember those things? So Dr. Finn, you know, and even I remember too when we were part of the labor movement. The young one time again we understood when they were saying that Patrick was gathering young people around him to do corrupt acts on Saturday mornings in government offices, and any Philomena Woodman is on the program tonight. We used to meet at the Housing Development Corporation, which is now the Youth Center. That is where it was. That's where we used to meet. And when that statement was made, we were all looking at each other. Why were people saying those things? Now, there are a number of misnomers and lies I know that were told about Patrick John. As I said, you know, the corruption, that he loved power and those kind of things there. I could tell another story, but it might put me in trouble.
Don't get into trouble tonight, because tonight we're honoring Patrick John.
Yeah.
And that's what we are here to do.
But when you speak, when you give those stories, you see, if we're honoring him and we're honoring somebody whom we claim. Now, there is no doubt about it. Patrick had his good side and he had his bad side. Every human being has their good side and their bad side. What disturbs me is the fact that too many people for too long only wanted to highlight the bad side of Patrick John, as if there was no good in him.
And usually there is a reason for that.
And so there's a reason for it. And the reason for it, as I said, is this legacy of prejudice that we have in Dominica. And it still continues to this day.
Simeon, one of those days I'll share with you some of the prejudice as far as that's concerned in the political sphere, the national political landscape of Dominica. That is factual, and that happens. But this is the man that we honor. We are honoring tonight, a man who's done so much in maybe so little time for so many people. I went to Point Michelle just a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't realize that there was a housing scheme in Point Michelle. Right, and I was told that when it was established, and with some of these houses are the same duplex houses like Bathurst and all of that, and I was just blown. And this will have the titles, they have the land titles. They can go to the bank and buy and sell and do whatever they want to do because they have a certain level of independence. When a man could have had that vision. And I'm going to go back to that, Simeon. Forgive me for doing that. In 1975 and 76.
77.
And in today, 2021, we can't get fulfillment of some stuff like we're still arguing about a strata title. When PG could give everybody the title back then, it is mind-boggling. Let's do this, folks, because that for me is another area of the man that I want people to get. One gentleman said tonight, and he listed the number of people that PG loved. Some people listening to us tonight would not love so many people that PG loved. That's what I want to say. I said it, but just listen to this now. Listen to this.
We are now in a new millennium. Time we come together and start to build our small nation. But we have to face the reality of some of the problems we have now affecting we. Double standard killing the whole country, while some preaching division and enmity. The fuss and the fight will take us nowhere. So, let we make a new commitment this year. Time to forget our differences and start to work hard as families, everybody. One flag, we are one God. One people, one nation. One flag, one blood. One people, one nation. Let's forget about party and the religion and start to work together as one. Instead of criticizing and backbiting, high time with some nation building. Some nation building. Nation building. Let's work together as a unit if you want to get this land up its feet. Instead of the backbiting and criticizing, high time with some nation building. Some nation building. Nation building. One flag, one God, one people, one nation. We are one flag, one God, one people, one nation. Tell the world now, Dominica. I am proud. We so often cry, the country going astray, but doing nothing to pay for our price of way. Rampant in the schools, our drugs and sex for the children. Some adults show no respect. Our women are battered and abused, while politicians have the nation confused. Someone try to undermine development
Timeless lyrics.
just to prevent progress and advancement.
Probably very, very important to play and sing now.
God and our country, everybody.
One flag,
One blood,
one blood, one people,
one name,
one nation.
one flag.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's already 18 minutes moving up to 9 o'clock, and we thank Fudina Frompton for allowing us this time. And I think she sent a message reminding us that Patrick John was also involved in the organization of Carnival, part and parcel of the JCs, I think it was at the time, Simeon? Yeah. So all of this from one man. And now he's singing to you one flag. He's asking you to come together from whatever perspective, whatever place you are, but come together as a nation.
Yeah, but you see, it speaks about what real heroism is, a life of service. That we give of the best of ourselves for the greater good of the other. And if you are to dissect the life of Patrick John, and you see his footprints in history, his contribution in almost every sphere, education, culture, politics, church, that is what, on the eve of our independence, it should beckon each of us to do as we listen to that song, because we are one flag, one people, one nation. And so when you would ask yourself, where does the inspiration from that song come from?
Right.
It comes from the bowels of a man who has recognized that this country belongs to us, that we are a people together, that as a nation, we go under one flag. And as such, if each of us will delve into the best of ourselves, be it in culture, be it in education, be it in politics, be it in whatever, and contribute to this country, we will be at a better place. And so that is what really makes him the hero that he is, a man of service and a man of life-giving a legacy.
Thank you very much again, Simeon. Mr. J, I think it's time now that we present this what we have to present now to. We'll use Renick to do that, and when Renick receives, then we will have both Renick and Desiree probably just say a few words in closing as we wind that down. Right, Mr. G, do I have your go?
You always have my go, Pastor Rodney. I mean, we come to the point now where this is what we really do. We give the flowers. I'm sorry that EJ is not alive to give him the flowers, but certainly Renick will receive it on his behalf, and Simeon also will help to receive whatever other things that we're going to be presenting to him. I'm very happy that Gabriel is here with us tonight, because he certainly is one of the historians, one of the authors who writes, and I hope he will reflect on what we're doing here tonight, especially in the context of that song that you just played, Pastor, written by Patrick John at a particular point in time, years ago. It's a reflection of what the man was thinking, what he was living, what his experience, what he was seeing happening around him, what he wanted for his society and his country. So I hope that people like Gabriel will help us and write what we're doing here tonight and put it in the right perspective in the context of that song. So Pastor Rodney, I think, yes, we should probably go right ahead and into our presentations.
Thank you very much. We'll do that while we have this song in the background as well.
One blood, one people, one nation. High time we be more productive. Some of us are too negative. Instead of discouraging and backbiting, high time we do some nation building. Some nation building. Nation building. Let's forget about the selfishness and start to work for national interest. instead of the loitering and pussyfooting. High time we do some nation building. Some nation building. Nation building. One flag, we are one God. One people, one nation. One flag.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of night when we make a presentation to Renick on behalf of his father, the Honorable Patrick Roland John, our first Premier and first Prime Minister, in recognition and appreciation for his lifelong upliftment of the poor and underprivileged. On behalf of the kudos to our heroes, Renick, we present this to Patrick John and we present it to you.
One flag, one God, one people, we are one nation. Everybody, one flag, one God, one people, one nation. Forget body hate and hypocrisy and start to practice more sincerity instead of the quarreling and pussyfooting. High time we do some nation building. Some nation building, nation building. Let's protect our country's image and be proud of its heritage instead of doing nothing and criticizing. High time we do some nation building, some nation building, nation building. One flag, we are one love.
Ladies and gentlemen, when we do that presentation, we do give flowers. We give real flowers. Desiree, we're giving real flowers, right? And we know that you will receive that on behalf of your husband. But from our hearts, we want you to receive it as well as though it were yours. Because you know what? You have done quite some work in that regard. And so we present this to you and Renick on behalf of your loving husband.
Thank you.
And usually we'd finish with that just like that because, you know, we can't always give everything we want to give in a time like now. And Renick, I want you to come again to receive on behalf of the committee. And it's written Desiree John on it. And it's from us to you.
Double standard killing the whole country, while some preaching division and enmity. The fuss and the fight will take us nowhere. So, let me make a new commitment this year. Time to forget our differences and start to work hard as families, everybody. One flag, we are one God, one people, one nation.
All right, having done this, Renick, we're going to get some comments from you. And in fact, let me take the comments from Desiree, and then we will come and take some comments from you. Desiree, your thoughts, your comments as we draw the curtain down on our program tonight.
To the folks, it's a pity that I can't be with you all in the studio because, as you know, I'm still recuperating from a broken ankle. And when I sent someone to check the steps of Q95, and they told me it must have been about some 50, I said, no way am I going to, to go up that way, you know? So I would like to say thank you to the committee for Kudos for Heroes, and also to the people who contributed to Patrick John, PJ, Comrade, as he was called, and he was the first person that they called Comrade. And right now I'm seeing Comrade being called right, left, and center to the same people who never wanted to hear that word Comrade. No, Mr. G, can I just take a few minutes? I
Sure.
would also like to thank you and Q95 for airing the death announcement of Patrick John free of charge, because you know I did not have money that I could have done that. So thank you. And also to Dominicans, both here and abroad in the diaspora, people in the region, and the entire world, universe, or you may call it, for all the outpouring of support, love, prayers, visits on the death of Patrick. Also, when I was hospitalized for 20 days with a broken ankle, I could not believe the amount of support, prayers, priests, pastors, flowers, fruit baskets, you know, so that just enlightened me, you know. And as I would say thank you, because you all were the wings beneath my wings. You taught me to fly when I had no wings. So thank you, thank you. My family and I will always be grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Desiree. Thank you.
Dr. Finn, Dr. Finn.
Yes.
It's nice to put a face to a voice. I've always been hearing your voice, but I've never seen your face before. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I think the last time I saw you was, I don't know, 1977. You were a little bit younger, you know.
I'm still young. I'm still young.
That's right.
A woman is never old.
Dr. Finn, quit while you are ahead.
Dr. Finn, Dr. Finn, Dr. Finn, Dr. Finn.
I know.
Wait, I didn't say, I said she's still beautiful. I just said
Quit
she's
while
still
you
young.
are ahead.
Thank you. That again. That again.
Listen to your fellow heroes committee, Dr.
Dr. Finn, Dr. Finn, Dr. Finn. Rennie, could you share some thoughts, please?
My stepmom thanked most of the folks, but I still want to emphasize some points. I really want to thank Mr. Sheridan Gregoire for this initiative and his team. Pastor Rodney, I want to thank you also. And Mr. Simeon Joseph, a friend of the family, is like a brother to us. And you know, he was very close to the family for the support he has given to us for my father, for the ordeal in the good times and the bad time. I want to just give my other siblings a call because I know they were there, especially in times of when my father was in distress. We all felt the pain. We stopped together. One of the things that he was always admonishing us, that we should stay together as a family. I want to call Junior. I know he's listening. I just want to call him, Patricia, Ophelia is in St. Croix, Paula, Nairi, and Aisha, 7 of us. And I just want to, on their behalf, we want to thank the public for their support. And it's the very first time my father have received some recognition like that, though he's dead. But we, as the children and the family, we appreciated that. We felt blessed. We are feeling, you know, I felt overwhelmed. And I just want to ask you all to continue the good work that you all are doing. And I know that God will bless you, the station. And I just want to say again that to my siblings and them to just hold strong, and God will do the rest as we allow him to do so. So I just want to say thanks again. And I want to thank Desiree for sticking with my dad and all the years. And as I said, that a lot of people think that, you know, they only see the negative of my father. Most people. Well, not everybody, most people. But even the Bible tells us that all have sinned and come short. Nobody's perfect. Every one of us are faulty. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has some weakness and strength. And sometimes we need to concentrate on the weakness rather than the strength. And he was a man of love. I don't know if you all can remember, there were 2 disasters. One at Petit Savan, when my father took the bull by the horn and went down to assist to pull out people from debris. And at Mount Prosper. And, you know, that will show that the kind of person that he was. Loved men, he loved people, and he would do everything within his power to assist people. And he do everything in his power to assist his loved ones and his neighbor, his friends, and the nation on a whole. And a lot of people did not see that. And honestly, we used to be hurt to see the kind of thing that my father went through. And the thing that when we speak to him and talk to him, he just tell us, cool it, and, you know, and whatever, just calm us down. But he was a great dad. He was my mentor, as I said. He was a man of humility. He was a man with a big heart. And he has done a lot for Dominica. And as a result of that, a lot of poor people was elevated from one stage to another stage. And they will meet you on the street and they will tell you, but thank God for your father, thank God. And you feel great, you feel proud. And I just want to appreciate what was done tonight. And I really feel moved, almost emotional, because to me, that's the first kind of recognition my father ever got since my father entered this political realm, and everything was negative. So I just want to thank Mr. Gregoire, thank all the team that put this program together to recognize my father as one of Dominica national heroes. Thank you.
Thank you, Renick. Any one of you on the panel want to share a few thoughts as we wind down? Let me start with you, Simeon, and then I'll go to all the rest of you on the panel in any order.
Okay, well, I want to share the sentiments and the comments of Renick and Desiree and the family of Patrick John for what has been expressed tonight. I am indeed extremely gratified and touched to know tonight that someone whom I've known for practically all my life, whom I have been engaged with, whom I have watched from a distance in good times and in bad, has been recognized tonight for who he was and what he has done. And so I want to thank the Kudos to the Heroes Committee, Mr. Gregoire, and all the other members of the panel who shared tonight. You know, when I reflect on the fact that over the years, there have been many attempts to muzzle any effort at recognizing Patrick John, tonight I'm of mixed feelings. I will say boldly tonight that I'm even aware that even invitations to Dominica's independence celebrations were turned down for Patrick John. That the name should not have been mentioned, that the person should not have been seen, that he was demonized as the worst person to ever walk the streets of Dominica, when I knew that he had his truth, and his truth would prevail one day. So I'm gratified that I have been part of the process to, not to canonize him, as I said, but to bring to the fore the person who he was, so that the footprints that he left on the sands of time, on the landscape of Dominican history, can be made known. So I'm very grateful to every one of you tonight for this. And as I said, I am indeed very touched that we have been able to do that, and that the family of Patrick can receive some gratification as they realize that their father, who sacrificed so much for Dominica, who contributed so much to the development of Dominica, who gave so much of himself and his life to Dominica, can finally be recognized and be put on the, I would say, the pedestal that he deserved to be put for too long a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Simeon. Thank you, Simeon. Janice, are you there with us? No, Janice, you're not. Gabu, can I have your final comments?
Thank you very much, Pastor Rodney. And again, thank you to Desiree John, not only for having been the wife of the first Prime Minister, but as a child, I knew her as the netball captain of Dominica. I hope I'm not promoting you. I think you were the netball captain of Dominica. Am I right, Desiree? So
No, I played, but I wasn't the captain.
well, you played as if you were the captain, so I give it to you.
Just too
But,
very good.
I share that because oftentimes we have to remind those who are not born as of yet of the different contributions. And as Simeon said, there are contributions that he made. Just this weekend, I came across a March 1978 letter. I sent it to Pastor Rodney this evening. It's in his WhatsApp. I sent it to Sheridan on the weekend. It was a letter written to me by no less a person than Bernard Wilshire, agreeing to come to the Sixth Form College to talk to us about independence, the independence message that Patrick John, as Premier then, was promoting, and which, as a member of the Dominica Popular Independence Committee, we supported Patrick John when folks were asking for referendum. We thought we should go through to independence. And so this evening, we're here to, as Brother Rennick said, he's not a theologian, but I think he's trying to take Pastor Rodney's job. But I think the reference he made was, to those who are without sin, let them cast the first stone. Am I paraphrasing you correctly, Rennick?
Mm-hmm.
I think I am.
You can see that.
Indeed. And so the reality is we are saluting the Premier, now later Prime Minister, for the things that he did to enhance the quality of life. And I've referenced, Levin Andre and I, those things in our work. We've also referenced other things because we are historians and we seek to put the record there for the ages. But tonight is a night of reflection. Tonight is a night to honor the contributions to nation building that he made. And I sure wish that some of those things could be resuscitated, as in the original youth camp, which preceded him, but he in fact supported, and the buy local campaign and the return to agriculture and industry, so we can have some export capacity, and so we would not have our young people be dependent as they are now increasingly so. Once again, congratulations to Ms. John, and to our condolences to the family, and our salute to the worthwhile contributions made by our first Prime Minister, Patrick Roland John.
Thank you, Gabu. Corinne, are you still there?
Yes, I am still there.
Final
Thank you.
comments, Corinne.
This has been an unbelievable program, and kudos for Heroes. It has been impactful in ways that I never imagined when we were planning to honor Mr. Patrick Roland John. I want to thank everyone for their comments and for the enlightenment that they provided. And one thought comes to mind as we wrap up, given the charge that Mr. G has given to our historians, that if we slow down and give people the right kind of time, there is always a bridge that can cross into communion. And I think the time has come for us to slow down and give Mr. John the right kind of time to be treated where memory truly lies, in the heart and not in the mind. For he has touched the hearts of many, many, many people. A second comment that was spoken of tonight is that Patrick John removed all the isms, the classism and racisms and other isms that was prevalent in Dominican society that I did not see because I came after Patrick John. And many times people ask me, where do you get your confidence from? What is this country called Dominica? Discussions on racism in the United States. And I say to them, well, I came from a place where a poor man can become a prime minister of a country. And that said to me that I could become anything that I wanted to become in my country at the time that I grew up. And I think that impact that Patrick John had was not just on me, but on my generation, where we saw where hard work, determination, your character, and your education could really elevate you from the poverty in which you were born, and you too had a chance to become something. Patrick John was that example for me, continues to be that example for me, and many others. So let's remember him with our heart and not just with our mind.
Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, Corinne. Crispin, Gregoire, your final thoughts?
Yes, Pastor Rodney, thank you. Thank you for a really great program tonight. I want to again salute and recognize Desiree, and you know, she's been steadfast. She's been a pillar in the story of Patrick John, and I feel a certain gratification tonight that the family is saying for the first time that this was sort of the public embrace that they had always hoped would happen, in at least in their lifetime. And for me, the first prime minister must be honored in his own country. And what I hope that honor, the best way to honor this man is to name something after him, some institution, maybe a statue, a monument. I know that people have said that the stadium should be named after him. I think that's a fitting public institution for him to be affiliated to his name. There must be something in our country that bears his name. Up to this point, we don't have anything. And I'm hoping that as we go forward as a country, we pay homage to this man who did one of the most significant things that anybody could do for a country. That was to bring an end to colonial rule. It will always go down in the history of Dominica that this name, Patrick John, will be significant as we go forward. And as I mentioned before, he stands tall among many of the leaders from the colonial world who brought an end to colonialism. And for that, he's one of my heroes. So Desiree, I just want to say that stay strong, and for the entire family of Mr. John to stay strong. We who have had the opportunity to at least work with him, and I as a student, someone who learned from him, I'll forever remember his contribution. And thank you very much to the committee. I think this has been a phenomenal evening for me and for others.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gregoire. Dr. Finn, your final comments?
Sure. So obviously this evening was quite something for all of us. But what struck me here was something here. Listening to all the contributors, listening to Simeon, listening to Mr. John, listening to Jedri, it just, something brought me back. About 30 years ago, I read a novel of Jackie Robinson. That's the first African-American to break the Negro, to be inducted to play baseball, Major League Baseball, and some of the troubles that he went through. And then he had, reading that novel, he said that the person who really saved him was his wife. And he said alongside every great man is a loving and caring wife. And I think that you've demonstrated that in so many ways, right? And so that's what brought back this what this evening brought back to me, reading that novel. And it's a very powerful novel. You can get your hands on it. The autobiography of Jackie Robinson. So the other thing is, when the final chapter of this Our Country is written, I think Mr. John will be featured prominently. You heard me task Simeon with asking why was PJ not viewed favorably, and that was actually I knew the answer, Simeon. I just wanted to hear it from you. As a kid, from the East, we too have our stories. We too have the stories of Pierre Collier. We too have the stories of folks coming down from Shimilita into Roseau just to be treated very badly by the merchants. So I think this collective, the final chapter of PJ's story hasn't been written. I think historians over the years will dig into when this phase of our what's happening today in Dominica is over, and people start digging into what happened, how did we get here? And I think Mr. John will be featured prominently. So this is just they said what? This is just the first draft of history, I think, of PJ's life. But more than that, the take-home message here is the lady who stood next to him in thick and in thin. It was a good evening, I think. I think all will agree it was a good evening. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Deirdre.
Thank you, Dr. Finn. And finally, Janice, are you with me, Janice?
She's there, but the mic is muted. You might want to unmute her mic so we can hear her.
Yeah, she seemed to have been going in and out as well.
Yes, maybe it's an internet issue with her.
Yeah, let's have your final comments, Mr. G. If she comes on, we'll still take her on.
Yes, Pastor Rodney, what more can I add to all of what has been said by all these illustrious people sitting around the table here tonight? Much has been said, and all of it is the truth. Patrick John was a hero. Now, I listened to everybody, but I particularly, when I listened to Rennick, what struck me was his voice, his tone, his expression. He sounded so much like PG. And I remember him saying that he thought of going into politics, but then maybe he might have changed his mind. But he reminds me so much of when PG was younger, his tone, his manner of speech. And what he said was so profound. And I mean, I couldn't help but recognize the appreciation that was expressed for Desiree. I mean, it's undoubtedly she was a strong woman behind Patrick. I mean, I've known that. People have known that. I mean, and Patrick knew that, and he appreciated that. Desiree herself told you, she was a troublemaker, not him. He realized that she was a strong one in the family, so he yielded to that strength, and it did him a lot of good. Sometimes it's good to listen to your wife.
Smart men do that.
You know what you're told, right? And you'll be okay, you'll do well. That's for people like Emmanuel Finn. I'm tired of telling him that. But Pastor Rodney, I mean, really and truly, I mean, it has been very inspiring. I think Patrick John's life is very inspiring. And as today, just put it in context, I'm listening to what's happening in Granby. And people in Granby being told, oh, you can't get somebody from among yourselves. So I have to get somebody for you. And then this young man comes out of nowhere, a young man called Handbag. And he say, okay, well, I'll stand up for Granby. Who knows what's going to come out of it? It reminds me of that little man called Patrick John, when Edward Leblanc decided, okay, I am going to hand over. Same thing happened. Eugenia at one time thought about this shop. She wanted to hand over to him in Portsmouth.
Alan Carbon.
Alan Carbon, little man. And then so Leblanc said Patrick, but Leblanc knew what he was going through, and he expected Patrick to have the same difficulty. Patrick understood the challenge that what he was up against, and that challenge is what he was really up against. It became a reality. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that when people like Simeon and Alex rewrite and write the history the way they see it, we'll get a lot of those truths coming out, But I think what we've done today is a good thing. I think it is. When I started the program, I said, the first thing I said, this is an international event, because there's so many messages from almost every country all over the place. I could not even mention all of them. I mean, and Simeon himself told you after the eulogy, the thousands and thousands of outpourings he got from people who highly appreciated not just what he said, but the fact that they did not know all of those things that Patrick John had accomplished in his life. They did not know the man the way he spoke about him, because a profile had been painted of him that probably was not the reality of the man. But then I knew the man, and I tell you, when if we go back and look at the days when we did that trade show in the St. Martin School, when I looked around, and Gable, you may have some pictures of that, pictures somewhere around, the proliferation of product that Dominica was producing at the time. That is Patrick John's era. You had so many different factories, so many different people producing all kind of things, exporting all over the place. A lot of people were employed. We did not have the crime rate that we have today. All right? The society wasn't as divided as it was today. There's so much divisiveness now, and it's really not good for us. I mean, and now we're talking when 43 years of independence, we're 43 years old. 7 years from now, we're going to be 50 years old as a country. What are we going to be like? Because today we look like we're not marking time. We seem to be reversing when it comes to other countries around us that seem to be advancing. I don't think that's what Patrick John had envisaged for Dominica. I think that what Dominica has to do now is to take stock of where we are, learn lessons from the foundation that Patrick John and the people like him laid for us, see where he was going, and see where we want to go in the future. Because we cannot be, when we're 50 years old, still talking about all the things that we never did accomplish. Why not just take a leap of faith, take some decisions, take a different turn from where we are now, remove whatever obstacles are in the path of our development, and move on so that we can become internationally competitive. We are, in fact, a nature island of the Caribbean. There's no reason why we should not have this true level of resilience and sustainability. We do have the natural resources. But the most important thing I think that Patrick John recognized was the human resource. That's why he put people first. He was a little man with a big eye. He was looking for people, and he realized that the most important asset of Dominica was its human resource. And that's why he reached out to grow people, develop people, so they could self-actualize and be everything that they could be. He reached out for excellence, you know. And so I'm very happy to have been associated with this program here tonight. All of the comments that were made, some of the callers that called, and people who did not even get to call, I want to tell you how much we appreciate you and we embrace you. All the people in Facebook who made comments, we did not get to read any of them. But certainly I think everyone who's been tuned in, including us, I mean, realize how great a man Patrick John really was. Nobody's saying he was a perfect man. In fact, every single person around this table here tonight said he was an imperfect man, just like all of us. And especially his wife, Desiree, said, so yes, she said he was not a perfect man. But he was the guy, and I would do it all over again, right? In the same way, I would marry him again and spend another 40-something years with him. She'd do it again. Why would she do that? Because he was a good man. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the members of the committee, you, Pastor Rodney, and Desiree, particularly you, for being you and having been there for Patrick. And I want to thank all of the children of Patrick John. I just want to let you know that, as I've told Desiree before, not on the show, but before that, we stand with her. And all she has to is reach out to us, and we will do whatever we can if she needs us. And the same thing extends to the family, all Patrick's children. I got Rennick's number. I will be in touch with you, Rennick. Certainly, I think we have to stay in touch. Simeon, I want to thank you for the great job you've done since the ideology. I don't know what's happening if your phone, you probably have to buy a new phone now. It's probably ringing up the hook, your probably ringtone probably spoiled by now. But the point is, you did a great job for Patrick. You're a true friend of the family, and I think Desiree and all the family, I'm sure, appreciate that. And Patrick, I believe, would have appreciated the effort that you made. So, Pastor Rodney, my heart is filled. I just want to go back to you and to say thank you for hosting us here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. G, and thanks all. From me, I want to say this, that I don't like to use the phrase that on the verse of scripture that Rennick used and Gable mentioned, and I'll tell you why. I don't like to use it because Jesus used it. Jesus used it because he was speaking from his perspective. He was the only perfect person. When we use it, we want to use it like Jesus, so I don't use it. We say, well, he was imperfect. We forget that we are imperfect. So I don't use it. Patrick was a man, period. He was a man like every one of us. And every one of us are men or women like Patrick. None of us have it all together. Absolutely none of us. So really and truly, that phrase that Jesus used is not for us to use. Okay? Because we must be studying ourselves first. Okay? So when we look at each other, what we should be looking at is the good that God endowed us with. The bad in us are the temptations that we fall to. And sometimes the bad in us are the weaknesses of our goodness. And I'm going to repeat that. Sometimes the bad in us are the weaknesses of our goodness. If Desiree wasn't a good wife, the weaknesses of Patrick John could have caused them lots more trouble. Okay? When we look at each other, I employ Dominicans to look at that. And so when I think of Patrick John over the years, right? And Simeon's going to probably hear me say that for the first time. When I think of Patrick John, I think of your father. Okay? Your father was somebody who was in and out of my parents' house in Kulibi Street. I knew how he felt and what he saw. So whilst I wasn't very close to Patrick in those days, but after all the communication that I've had with all the people who were close to him, when I think of Patrick, that's the caliber of people that I think about. People who went the extra mile to make sure that somebody else was lifted, even if they had to sacrifice themselves for that purpose. And so, Desiree, I thank you very much for standing by a man like this so that he could have become the person that he became. For us now to think back as to all the things that he has brought through and all the people he touched, all the donations he made to the lives around us. He's a man like me. I've made many mistakes. Maybe none of you have made any, but I've made many. But I'm also satisfied that with the mistakes that I've made, I've touched many lives. And I want to touch many more lives. Every one of us need to seek to do that and become like Patrick. And we probably have an opportunity to become, let me put it that way, better than Patrick, if we allow that spirit to get out of us and touch other people's lives. If we get to a place where we can take down what is happening around us now with the divisiveness, with the pulling at each other and tugging and fighting each other, and we get to a place where we can recognize the differences in each other and lift each other up, I'm not sure that anything, any country in the world could compete with us if we put all our resources together as different as we all are. So Desiree, thank you. Thank you, Renick. Thank you to Patricia and Hephilia and Paula and Nairi and I missed one more. Aisha and Junior. Thank you to all of you, because it's all of you who contributed to make Patrick, the Patrick Roland John, the little man that we all got to know. Before I say good night, I want Simeon now needs to make a very important announcement to the world.
Well, the important announcement is that the family, Mrs. John, we have discussed that we want to establish the Patrick John Foundation. And it will be the Patrick John Foundation for History and Heritage. It's pinned on ensuring that the history of Dominica is one that is written with highlighting particularly the contributions of significant Dominicans, and most particularly to try to emphasize the history of modern Dominica for young Dominicans. Okay, that's the first thing, because too many of our young people post-1980 have grown up almost unaware, or you could say ignorant, of the facts of Dominican history from a different perspective. And heritage, because I mean, as I mentioned earlier tonight, I indicated that it was Patrick John who initiated the Mount Wapito National Park. And one of the things that Patrick John, maybe Dominicans do not know, that was hell-bent on was the preservation of historical buildings in Dominica. And so he always lamented the fact that some of our historical buildings were being torn down and made way for modern buildings. So that is why we want to start the foundation, one, to begin a series of educational forums where we can bring to the fore the modern Dominican history, and as well the second one, heritage, to raise funds for the preservation of the historical buildings in Dominica. A committee will be set up to that effect. Mrs. John is in full agreement with it and the family. And the last conversation I had with Desiree is we have listed a number of persons whom we could bring on board to ensure that this foundation is one of a lasting legacy.
Very good. Great announcement tonight, and it's a good way to end this fantastic evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please get involved on this thing as the Patrick John Foundation is established for history and heritage.
Pastor Rodney,
Yes.
can I just make a quick request to Dr. Finn? Finn?
Yes, I'm here.
Christmas is coming.
Yes.
And I would do well with a copy of that book you spoke about.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we'll make it happen. I will talk to my manager, Mr. Gregoire. We'll make it happen as soon as we'll make it happen. Yeah, we'll make it happen. It's a great book. As a matter of fact,
Dr. Finn, you're not a politician. Get the lady the book and stop saying you'll make it happen.
Thank you
very much. Have a good night, Dr. Emmanuel Finn.
Thank you.
A very good evening to all of you. Thanks for being on the call tonight. We're very happy to have had every single one of you and all of you listening in the audience tonight. Our next Kudos for Heroes will be sometime in January or February, I think it is, Mr. G.
Right, something around there. Yeah.
And we will announce to you who that next hero is going to be. Until then, have a great evening. Thanks, all of you, for being on the call.
Thank you, Pastor
Everyone,
Rodney.
thank you.
And Simeon, rest assured that we will provide you with all support you need from Q for the foundation. Okay? Okay, Pastor Rodney. Good night, everybody.
God bless. God bless. Good night. Good night.
If you give a little more than you take.